Generations roar, hearts united, we're ready for more. Through every challenge we'll light the flame, the world will remember our name.
Misty stood victorious over the defeated Commander Saturn, who lay unconscious on the battlefield. Beside Misty were her loyal Pokémon, Golduck and Corsola.
Good job, Golduck, Corsola.
Misty turned, ready to press on, when a heart-wrenching sight stopped her in her tracks. Ahead, 5 Squirtle lay scattered. 2 of them were motionless, their shells cracked and their eyes lifeless. The remaining 3 huddled together, their cries piercing the heavy air. Misty's heart clenched as she recognized the distinct sunglasses of the Squirtle Squad. A flashback suddenly consumed her thoughts, pulling her back to a couple of months ago, which felt like a happier time long past. She remembered the day she became the Kanto champion. Ash Ketchum had approached her, his eyes filled with determination and pride.
Misty, I need you in my army!
Ash had said, extending a hand. Behind him, the Squirtle Squad stood proudly, their leader saluting. The memory of their hopeful faces and Ash's unwavering belief in her filled Misty with renewed resolve. The flashback faded, and Misty was thrust back into the present chaos. Her eyes focused on the legendary Kyogre, a monstrous figure looming in the distance, controlled by the malevolent Archie, who stood atop the giant Pokémon. The Squirtle Squad leader charged at Kyogre, dodging its powerful attacks with remarkable agility. But the other 2 Squirtle were paralyzed with fear, unable to move as Kyogre prepared to unleash another devastating attack. Without hesitation, Misty grabbed 2 Pokeballs and tossed them with precise aim. The Pokeballs consumed the 2 terrified Squirtle, safely capturing them before Kyogre's attack landed.
Golduck, use Ice Beam! Corsola, use Power Gem!
Misty commanded. Golduck's Ice Beam struck Kyogre, momentarily freezing part of its massive body, while Corsola's Power Gem pelted it with a glowing stone. The Squirtle Squad leader took advantage of the distraction, leaping onto Kyogre and delivering a fierce water gun attack directly hitting Archie. Kyogre roared in anger, shaking the Squirtle off, but it inadvertently knocked Archie off also. Archie stood up and glared at Misty.
You think you could stop me, little champion?
He sneered.
Kyogre, show them your true power!
Kyogre launched a powerful attack. Corsola jumped forward, taking the full brunt of the hit to protect the others. The impact was devastating, and Corsola fell lifeless to the ground.
No! Corsola!
Misty cried, dropping to her knees beside her fallen Pokémon. Tears streamed down her face as she cradled Corsola's body. Kyogre hesitated, its fierce expression wavering as it realized the gravity of its actions. Archie continued to command it from the shadows, but Kyogre's resolve began to falter. With a heavy heart, Misty returned Golduck to its Pokeball, knowing she must protect it. She scooped up the remaining Squirtle as Kyogre prepared to strike again. Just as the attack was about to hit, Misty and the Squirtle were lifted into the air by a sudden gust of wind.
Togekiss, could it be?
Misty whispered, recognition dawning on her. Togekiss gently sat her down, and Misty realized it was her old Togepi, now evolved and had sensed her distress from worlds beyond. Kyogre roared again, this time in blind rage, and it began to rampage uncontrollably. Misty quickly assessed the situation.
Squirtle, Togekiss, we need to distract Archie.
The two Pokémon nodded and sprang into action, drawing Archie's attention away from Kyogre. As they engaged him, Misty gathered her courage and approached the massive water type.
I know you're not evil.
She said, her voice steady despite the danger.
No Pokemon truly is. You're being used, but you can choose a different path.
Kyogre growled, its eyes narrowing at Misty. Suddenly, she felt a presence behind her. It was Iris, the champion of Unova, with her beloved Haxorus.
Misty, you have a special connection with water types, just like I do with dragons.
Iris said, encouragingly.
Only you can reach Kyogre.
Misty nodded, determination flooding through her. She took a step closer to Kyogre, extending her hand.
Please, let me help you. We can stop this together.
Kyogre's growls softened, and it lowered its head slightly. Misty placed her hand gently on its rough skin, feeling a surge of energy as their bond formed. Meanwhile, Squirtle and Togekiss managed to corner Archie. Enraged, Archie tried to command Kyogre to attack them, but Kyogre no longer obeyed him. Instead, it turned to face Archie, fury blazing in its eyes. In one swift motion, Kyogre unleashed an attack that ended Archie's threat once and for all. Kyogre then turned back to Misty, its expression sorrowful. In her mind, Misty could hear it speak.
I am sorry for what I have done. I will do everything in my power to atone for Corsola and the others.
Misty smiled through her tears and nodded.
Let's be friends, Kyogre. Together, we'll help Ash bring down the Dark Alliance. See you soon, dear friend.
Hey cuz, why doesn't Kyogre stay with you all the time? I've only seen you use it once in an official battle, when you challenged Ash Ketchum for the World Championships. Why don't you ever use it to defend your regional title?
Kyogre is my friend who helps me when I truly need it. I may carry its Pokeball, but it has no master.
So, Kyogre felt challenging Ash deserved its assistance? Well, Ash Ketchum is a legend himself, along with his Pikachu. Perhaps it felt they were worthy.
I believe that the legends of this world cannot be tamed. Archie learned that the hard way. It was the same for Ash. Even when we were kids, he could never stay in one place. He cannot be tamed. And the scum who kidnapped him and Pikachu will also learn the consequences of taming a legend. We'll keep fighting. For Corsola and for everyone else.
We will find them, cuz.
Let's fly back to Cerulean City, little cousin. You have a tough gym child who is eager for that Cascade badge.
Rowan, use Vine Whip! Mark commanded, and the Bellsprout's vines lashed out towards Spearow. Spearow, dodge and use Peck! Anthony countered, and Spearow nimbly avoided the attack, darting forward to strike Rowan with its sharp beak. The battle raged on, both Pokemon giving their all. Suddenly, Spearow began to glow, its form shifting and growing larger. Mark and Anthony watched in awe as Spearow evolved into Fearow. "Wow, Fearow, you did it!" Anthony exclaimed, running up to his newly evolved Pokémon. "Mark, look at Fearow, he's amazing!" Mark grinned. "That's awesome, Anthony. Nimbus will be proud of his buddy Fearow when he finds out that he evolved." Feeling the excitement, Mark then said, "I want to test Darius against Fearow. Let's see how they match up." Anthony hesitated, a sharp look crossing his face. "Maybe we should rejoin the celebration in the Pokémon Center," he said abruptly. Mark blinked in surprise, but nodded. "Alright, we'll test them out another time." The two trainers returned to the Pokémon Center, where their friends were still celebrating Rachel's first contest ribbon. Of course, Daisy was still sobbing, telling Rachel how proud her father would have been of his princess.
Mom, do you think we can call Grandpa Stone? I want to show Metagross my first contest ribbon!
Rachel asked excitedly. Daisy had a strange look on her face and quickly said,
Sweetie, you know how busy your grandfather is. I tried calling him this morning and his assistant said he is out of town on business and doesn't want to be disturbed. He's almost 65. He needs to retire so he and Metagross can keep in touch more. I miss them.
Rachel said sadly. Samuel Oak approached his great-granddaughter, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Darling, I can relate to Mr. Stone, as I too struggled with retiring from my career. Like your grandfather, I also lost a son. Your grandfather Blue Oak and his wife died in a car accident when Gary was just 5 years old. Even though your mother helped me raise him, I buried myself in my work to ease some of the pain. In time, Mr. Stone will realize that the true healers of grief are the loved ones who are here today." The Oak family huddled into one another for a loving group hug. Anthony felt a tear welling up in his eye as he looked to the floor, his mind filled with thoughts. Misty informed the group that she would be returning to her champion duties, but first, she would be staying to watch Mark challenge her cousin Rain for the Cascade badge. The group arrived at the Cerulean City Gym, their excitement palpable. The gym was a sprawling aquatic arena. As they entered, Misty was greeted by a multitude of water types, all happily splashing about. From high above, Rain appeared, standing on the edge of the diving board. With a graceful dive, he plunged into the giant swimming pool like a true professional. Emerging with a confident smile, he swam to the edge and pulled himself up. At 15, Rain was muscular and athletic, drawing an admiring blush from Rachel when he winked at her. "What's up, cutie?" Anthony, noticing this, grunted and hurried everyone to the seating area. Charlie, nervous of the water, hopped off Mark's shoulders and approached Delia, who smiled down at her. She picked up Charlie and allowed the Charmander to sit on her shoulder to cheer on Mark. The referee, perched on a lifeguard stand, announced the rules. Like the Pewter City Gym, Rain would only use 2 Pokémon with no substitutions. However, this time Mark could only use up to 3 Pokémon from his party, with the allowance of substitutions. Mark took his position, his heart pounding. Little islands rose from the water to create a path for him and his Pokémon. Rain stood opposite, ready with his dive ball. He tossed it into the air, and with a flash of light, a tentacle appeared. Mark smiled and sent out Rowan. The battle was on. Rain called for Poison Sting, and Mark ordered Rowan to use Vine Whip on the island, propelling himself high into the air and narrowly avoiding the attack. Tentacool quickly retaliated with Water Pulse, the orb of water catching Rowan mid-air and sending him crashing into one of the islands. Tentacool dived into the water, jetting towards Rowan with incredible speed. Mark called for Mega Drain, and Rowan's leaves glowed green as it absorbed energy from the approaching Tentacool, stopping its momentum. With a swift motion, Rowan used Vine Whip to fish Tentacool out of the water, launching it into the air and following up with another Mega Drain, draining the last of Tentacool's energy for the KO. Rain smiled, impressed, and praised Rowan's toughness. As Mark was about to respond, a bright light engulfed Rowan. Mark was overjoyed by his new weepon belt, but kept his cool as Rain was sending out his final Pokemon, a ferocious-looking Wartortle, and Misty smiled from the seating area. Wartortle removed its sunglasses and was battle-ready. Mark quickly called for Mega Drain, but Wartortle dived underwater. Rain ordered it to use Workup, boosting its attack and special attack stats. Rowan, unable to swim, waited. Wartortle surfaced with a determined gleam in its eye and unleashed a torrent of boiling water, slamming Rowan down and inflicting burn. Rowan struggled to rise, yet determined to continue. Rowan's vine shot across the battlefield. Wartortle withdrew into its shell to shield itself. Then, its right arm suddenly popped out, grabbing the vines. With a powerful yank, it pulled Rowan close and struck him with Ice Punch, knocking him out. Mark's heart sank. This Wartortle was formidable. Taking a deep breath, he called out his next Pokemon. Ray the Pichu appeared, her tiny form contrasting sharply with the imposing Wartortle. Yet, Ray's eyes sparkled with determination. Mark commanded Ray to use Quick Attack. Ray darted forward, landing a quick hit on Wartortle. The damage was minimal, but Ray's speed was impressive. Rain ordered Wartortle to use Scald, but Ray's agility allowed her to dodge. Mark called for Thunderbolt. Ray leaped into the air, sheets sparking as she released a powerful electric attack. The Wartortle countered with a boosted water gun, the stream overpowering Thunderbolt and knocking Ray into the water. Ray struggled, barely able to stay afloat. Wartortle dived after Ray, and Mark saw his chance. He called for a Trapped. Ray's eyes sparkled with hearts, and Wartortle, struck by the move, stopped in its tracks, immobilized by love. Mark commanded Ray to use Volt Switch, hitting Wartortle with a super effective electric move and returning to her Pokeball. Out came Darius, the Meowth, ready for action. Anthony's eyes scowled from the seating area, and Rachel spotted this. She wanted to question Anthony, but realized it wasn't the right time. Mark ordered Darius to use Thunderbolt. Darius's whiskers glowed as he released a powerful Thunderbolt, the entire place sparkling with electricity. Rain was frozen in shock as Wartortle tried to withstand the attack. Despite its injuries, Wartortle refused to give up. It jumped onto an island, staring down at Darius, but the damage was too much. With a final defiant glare, Wartortle collapsed, unable to battle. The referee declared Mark the winner. His friends erupted in cheers, rushing down to congratulate him. Darius pounced on Mark, and Ray popped out of its Pokeball to join the embrace. Delia looked down at Mark with a tearful smile as she felt Ash's presence during the battle. Misty approached Rain, who was visibly frustrated. Misty said there were always lessons in failure, and Rain was only scratching the surface on becoming a great gym leader. Rain nodded, managing a smile. He turned to Mark and handed him the Cascade Badge. Mark celebrated his victory with Charlie, Ray, Darius, and Rowan. They exited the gym where Misty said farewell to the group as she had some challenges to accept at the Champion League. She hugged Gary, Daisy, and Samuel goodbye and then moved on to a broken Delia, comforting her.
I promise you, we will find Ash.
Misty whispered to Delia's ear.
She has a lead. And plans will set into motion really soon.
The two hugged, and then Misty approached Mark, wishing him luck on his journey, and mentioned she would love to battle him someday. She then handed Mark, Anthony, and Rachel a water stone, each as a parting gesture. Misty suggested if Rachel wanted to use it on her Staryu, she would be best to train it for a little while longer before doing so. She also suggested using it on Eevee. Eevee sniffed the stone, and to all of their surprise, she gagged and rejected the water stone. Before Misty left, Mark asked for a selfie, mentioning that his brother Maven was a huge fan. Misty laughed and they took the photo together. With final goodbyes, she wished Anthony luck in his upcoming Junior Frontier tournament. As Misty departed, Mark looked at his Cascade Badge, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. His journey was just beginning, and he knew there were many more challenges ahead. But with his friends by his side, he felt ready for anything.
Ours wasn't coincidence. I don't believe it could be just a coincidence that I met you out of all people. What do you mean, Ash? I guess what I mean is, even though that happened, I think that we were meant to meet and become friends.
Me too. We've been through so much together on our travels, I'd say we're best friends now.
You mean it, Brock? We're really best friends?
Yeah.
Guess I'll be going this way.
Yeah.
Take care, Ash.
You too, Misty.
Will I see you again?
You will. I swear.
Gary Oak was just about to join in on the excitement until a green glowing light zoomed through the sky like a shooting star. But something was strange about this star. He shook his head and the group continued to hype Anthony up for his upcoming Junior Frontier Challenge. Conscious. We have a breakthrough. I have so many questions to ask you.
Let me ask you a question. What are you afraid of? Is it the unknown? Is it the darkness? Is it the monster that lives underneath your bed? I now see it all. What was? What is? What will? He lives within my domain, and the world belongs to me now.
They say no Pokémon is evil. But I believe we just created one. 2 days had passed since Mark's triumphant gym victory. Since then, he had been dedicating his time to preparing Anthony for his upcoming Junior Frontier tournament. The training battles were intense, designed to sharpen Anthony's skills and build his confidence. The previous night, they had met Don George, who had informed them that the Cerulean City tournament would consist of double battles. Armed with this new information, they had fine-tuned their strategy. Anthony had 5 Pokémon in his party, which he could rotate between rounds to keep his opponents on their toes. Anthony felt more prepared than ever for the tournament. And there was one thing that was on his mind: facing his rival, Chris. He was itching for the chance to knock Chris down a peg and prove himself once and for all. The trio were greeted by Mark's rival, Victor, who wasted no time bragging about earning 3 gym badges. Mark's temper flared at Victor's arrogance, and the two quickly began comparing their Pokédex entries. To Mark's relief, he had seen and caught more Pokémon, which gave him a small sense of satisfaction and lifted his spirits. Victor, unfazed, casually mentioned that he had been busy searching for more fossils. Victor then turned his attention to Anthony, revealing that he was entering the Cerulean City Junior Frontier. He explained that he wasn't interested in competing in all the Kanto tournaments, but the bonus reward for the Cerulean City Tournament, a rare old amber fossil, had caught his eye. He admitted that his only reason for entering the tournament was to win the old amber, dismissing the competition as secondary. This nonchalant attitude infuriated Anthony, who was putting his heart and soul into these tournaments, not just for glory, but to support his mother and earn the right to challenge Silver. Victor, with a smug smile, wished Anthony luck before striding confidently toward the battle arena, leaving Anthony simmering with determination. The trio exited the Pokémon Center, only to be met with an unexpected heavy thunderstorm that had suddenly struck the city. Without wasting a moment, they sprinted through the downpour towards the outdoor arena. As they reached the entrance, Anthony headed backstage to prepare for his match, while Mark and Rachel joined the audience, umbrellas in hand to shield themselves from the relentless rain. The judging panel was soon announced. Don George, as usual, along with 2 special guests, Drake of the Orange Islands and Sabrina, the gym leader of Saffron City. Mark couldn't help but feel intrigued by her presence, knowing he would be challenging her in the near future. As if sensing his thoughts, Sabrina's gaze shifted directly to Mark, causing him to gasp. Her piercing eyes seemed to delve deep into his soul, leaving Mark with an uneasy feeling that he couldn't shake. The giant screen flickered to life, presenting the matchups for the tournament. Anthony scanned the list, only to be shocked that Chris was not among the competitors. A quick inquiry revealed that Chris had already conquered the Cerulean tournament, leaving Anthony both relieved and disappointed. For the first round, Anthony was pitted against a young man dressed in a quirky Slowbro costume, who introduced himself as Rex. The 2 trainers made their way to the battlefield, anticipation thick in the air. Rex tossed his Pokeballs, releasing a Slowpoke and Marowak onto the field. In response, Anthony called out his newly evolved Fearow and his Beedrill, their wings buzzing with readiness.
Fearow, use Aerial Ace. Beedrill, Fury Cutter,
Anthony commanded. Fearow darted forward with blinding speed, but Marowak quickly used Dig, disappearing underground to avoid the attack. Slowpoke shielded itself with Protect, nullifying Beedrill's Fury Cutter. Suddenly, Marowak burst from the ground, striking Fearow with a powerful Brick Break, sending it crashing to the ground. Seizing the opportunity, Slowpoke unleashed a Water Gun, but Beedrill was too fast. It dodged the attack and retaliated with a potent Venoshock, following up with a relentless Fury Cutter. The combination proved too much for Slowpoke, who fell to the ground, knocked out. Marowak, however, was not finished. It snuck up behind Beedrill, delivering a fierce fire punch that brought Beedrill down. But even as Beedrill struggled, it forced its wings to flap, letting out a defiant screech that echoed across the battlefield. In a final act of teamwork, Fearow zoomed in, crashing into Marowak with Drill Run, creating an opening for Beedrill. With one last burst of energy, Beedrill struck Marowak down with Fury Cutter, securing the victory. Anthony had made it to the second round. The crowd erupted in applause, but Anthony's focus remained sharp. He knew the challenges ahead would only get tougher. Victor's match was up next. With his Kabuto and Ammonite, he made quick work of his opponents, dominating his way to the second round. Mark watched from the crowd, his fury simmering, while Anthony paced anxiously backstage, the tension palpable. After a brief break, Anthony was called to meet his next opponent, a young girl named Annie. As they stepped onto the battlefield, Annie sent out her Primeape and Ivysaur, while Anthony countered with his Dratini and Nidoran. From the crowd, Rachel's Nidoran sat on her lap, cheering excitedly for her beloved. The battle began, with Anthony calling for Nidoran to use Peck on Primeape. Annie commanded Primeape to dodge, but it stubbornly refused, taking the super effective hit head-on, as if it considered dodging beneath its warrior spirit. Meanwhile, Ivysaur had wrapped its vines around Dratini, but its attention was divided, as Annie's frustrated shouts at her uncooperative Primeape echoed across the field. Taking advantage of the distraction, Dratini wriggled free and unleashed a twister, catching Ivysaur off guard and sending it tumbling. As Ivysaur recovered, it began growling at Primeape, and in a flash, the two teammates turned on each other, brawling furiously. Annie, on the verge of tears, pleaded with her Pokémon to stop, her voice cracking with desperation. Dratini and Nidoran exchanged a glance. Seizing the opportunity, Dratini conjured a massive twister, while Nidoran sprayed Poison Sting into the swirling vortex. The toxic tornado barreled into the enraged Primeape and Ivysaur, knocking them both into unconsciousness. Anthony had secured his place in the semifinals. As Anthony prepared to return his Pokémon, he noticed Nidoran glowing with a bright light. Before his eyes, Nidoran evolved, transforming into a striking Nidorino. Overjoyed, Anthony embraced his newly evolved partner, though his happiness was tempered when he saw Rachel's Nidoran, who didn't share in the celebration. She whined softly before retreating into her Pokeball, clearly dismayed that her beloved was no longer a Nidoran. Both Anthony and Victor continued to dominate their matches, and soon it was time for them to face each other in the finals. The thunderstorm that had been raging all day intensified, turning the open roof arena into something resembling a watertight battlefield. As the final battle commenced, Anthony sent out Fearow and his newly evolved Nidorino. Victor, smirking with confidence, countered with Ammonite and Magnemite, his first time not using both fossil Pokemon in the tournament. The battle began with Magnemite showcasing its speed, striking Nidorino with a powerful Gyro Ball. Fearow retaliated by diving at Ammonite with Aerial Ace, but the attack only did minor damage. Ammonite quickly responded with Roch Tomb, smashing Fearow to the ground. Fearow, battered but not defeated, dragged itself upright and took to the air once more, delivering a powerful drill run that struck Ammonite hard. But before Fearow could capitalize, it was suddenly hit by a surprise thunder attack from Magnemite. The storm had amplified the electric move's power, and Fearow was sent crashing down, unable to continue the fight. Nidorino, furious at the sight of his fallen comrade, charged forward with a fierce determination. He delivered a barrage of double kicks, each blow landing with precision, and Magnemite was swiftly knocked out. Ammonite retaliated with a mud shot, hitting Nidorino with a super effective move that sent him staggering. But Nidorino refused to stay down. He pulled himself up and charged once more, hitting Ammonite with a powerful takedown. Ammonite tried to counter with Rock Tomb, but Nidorino shattered the incoming rocks with another double kick, sending debris flying in all directions. Without missing a beat, Nidorino sprayed Ammonite with Poison Sting. As the battle raged on, Anthony noticed something remarkable. The rainwater dripping over Nidorino's horn began to freeze. Suddenly, a raging beam of ice shot out of Nidorino's horn, striking Ammonite with a devastating ice beam. The attack was overwhelming, and Ammonite fell, unable to continue. Anthony had won! He had beaten Victor and claimed his second Junior Frontier Tournament victory. Victor was seething, grunting in frustration as he returned his Pokémon. Meanwhile, Anthony was escorted to the stage, where he was presented with a blue trophy and the prized old amber fossil. his Rotom phone buzzed, notifying him that he'd received his winning fund of 15,000 Pokédollars. As Rachel and Mark joined him on the stage, embracing him in celebration, Nidorino nudged Rachel to bring out her Nidoran. But when Nidoran emerged, she rejected Nidorino, leaving him heartbroken and horrified. Turning away from the awkward scene, Anthony approached Mark to thank him for all his help in preparing for the double battles. In a gesture of gratitude, he handed Mark the old Amber. Mark accepted it, glancing at Victor, who looked visibly disheartened at the sight of the fossil slipping away from his grasp. "Anthony, thank you, but I think..." Mark began, but his words were drowned out by a sudden, deafening rumble of thunder. Lightning crackled across the sky, striking the arena and all of Cerulean City. Emergency alarms blared, and panic spread like wildfire. A large shadow swept across the stormy clouds, illuminated by flashing yellow lights beneath. A loud, eerie cry echoed through the sky, and a raging Zapdos unleashed a barrage of thunderbolts, plunging the city into a power outage. Mark, Anthony, Rachel, and Victor sprinted out of the battle arena, hearts pounding. Outside, they encountered two Pokemon Rangers named Tommy and Kimberly, who were speaking with Officer Jenny and a group of police officers. Mark's eyes fell on four Meowth among them, instantly recognizing the same Meowth he had met before. Without hesitation, Mark sent out Darius and Ray, who quickly ran over to join their friends. Anthony, initially displeased to see the Meowth, quickly shifted his focus to the escalating crisis. Mark and the others offered their help, ready to assist in any way they could. Officer Jenny informed them that she had received a call from the Pokemon daycare on Route 5, which was in need of dire assistance. Without a moment to lose, the trio and Victor hopped into the Ranger's truck, speeding toward Route 5. When they arrived at the daycare, they were horrified to see it engulfed in flames. The breeders were frantically scurrying around the farms, trying to rescue the Pokemon and eggs. Without hesitation, the five Meowth and Ray sprinted to assist in the rescue efforts, their determination mirroring that of their trainers. Tommy and Kimberly quickly sent out two Blastors, commanding them to use Hydro Pump to douse the raging fire. Victor released his Kabuto and Omanyte, while Rachel summoned her Staryu to assist with Water Gun. Mark contributed by sending out Rocco to use Mudslap, and Eevee joined in with Sand Attack to help control the flames. The rest of their Pokemon were deployed to rescue other Pokemon and eggs, working tirelessly amidst the chaos. Mark was taken aback to see Victor summon a Kangaskhan, who efficiently scooped up several young Pokemon, placing them gently in her pouch and carrying them to safety. The group collectively flinched when Zapdos suddenly appeared from the stormy clouds, hovering ominously over the Pokemon daycare. Its eyes glowed an angry red, radiating fury and power. "We need to come together and fight in a raid battle," Tommy urged. He and Kimberly tossed out more Pokeballs, releasing two Rhydon. They ordered the Rhydon to use Stone Edge on Zapdos. Mark quickly called for Charlie and his other Pokemon to join the attack, while Rachel's Pokemon also launched their own moves. But Zapdos withstood the onslaught, barely phased. The situation turned dire as Zapdos retaliated with a ferocious Zap Cannon, scattering the Pokemon below. Nidoran was in the line of fire, but Nidorino bravely leaped in front, taking the hit. Nidoran began to cry, and Anthony rushed to his Pokemon's side. In a moment of raw emotion, Nidoran began to glow. Stepping forward with newfound strength, Nidorina unleashed a powerful Ice Beam at Zapdos. The legendary bird responded with a Thunderbolt, but the two Rhydon leaped into the attack, absorbing the electricity with no effect. Charlie and Dratini then soared into the air, combining their Dragon Breath and Twister attacks to strike Zapdos from above. Gasper, Beedrill, and Fearow joined the aerial assault, keeping Zapdos distracted while the Pokemon on the ground continued their attack. Rocco and Victor's fossil Pokemon combined their Rock-type attacks, striking Zapdos with a powerful blow that made it roar with rage. In retaliation, Zapdos blasted Gasper, Beedrill, and Fearow out of the sky and then zoomed down, its body crackling with deadly voltage, aiming straight for Mark and Victor. Charlie and Kabuto, visibly distressed, ran towards their trainers, but Kangaskhan was quicker. She sprinted to the boys, grabbing them both and leaping away just before Zapdos' lightning struck the ground where they had stood. Mark, frozen in shock, finally found his voice and thanked Kangaskhan for her quick action. The battle continued to rage as the 5 Meowth and Ray struck Zapdos with a combined Thunderbolt. Nidorina followed up with another Ice Beam, while Kangaskhan stood beside her and unleashed a powerful Blizzard. The combined assault froze Zapdos' right wing, sending the mighty bird crashing to the ground. Seizing the moment, Tommy and Kimberly used their capture stylers, sending out a string of lights that wrapped around Zapdos. As the energy of the styler enveloped it, Zapdos' eyes gradually returned to normal, and it ceased its roaring, calming down. As the storm clouds began to dissipate, the sun broke through, casting a warm light over the now tranquil scene. Exhausted, everyone dropped to their knees, catching their breath. The breeders and daycare employees rushed over, expressing their heartfelt thanks to the rangers and trainers for rescuing their Pokémon and eggs. Mark noticed his Gasper communicating with the now docile Zapdos.
Hey, Master! Zapdos says its raging outburst was a result of being captured and tested on by evil scientists.
Gasper explained, adding that Zapdos had no memory of its rampage in Cerulean City. The last thing it recalled was being attacked by humans in strange black suits. It has to be Team Justice, Mark suggested, his voice filled with concern. The Rangers quickly relayed the information to Officer Jenny, who assured them that she would investigate further. Meanwhile, Zapdos was carefully transported to Pallet Town, where Gary would check on its condition, hoping the evil scientist hadn't caused any long-term damage. Once cleared, Zapdos would be released back to the wild where it belonged. As the repairs continued, Mark noticed Victor preparing to leave for another city. Before he could go, Mark hurried over to him and stopped him. Without a word, Mark handed Victor the old amber. Victor's jaw dropped in disbelief. "I want you to have this," Mark said firmly. "Your dream is to have all the fossil Pokémon. It's only right you have it." Victor's initial reaction was defensive.
I'm not taking your handouts,
he yelled. Mark met his gaze steadily. "If it wasn't for your Kangaskhan, I'd be dead. You deserve this." After a moment of hesitation, Victor accepted the old amber and nodded to Mark.
Thank you. But catching all fossil Pokémon isn't my only ambition. I will be the Pokémon League champion!
As they exchanged a silent understanding, the Pokémon breeders approached, carrying 4 Pokémon eggs. They handed one to each trainer as a token of their appreciation for helping save the daycare. Victor thanked the breeders with a brief nod and quickly made his exit. Tommy and Kimberly watched him go, a bit disappointed that they didn't get the chance to thank him for his help. Turning to Mark, Anthony, and Rachel, Tommy and Kimberly mentioned that they were heading to Vermilion City next, the location of Rachel's upcoming contest. It was also the perfect opportunity for Mark to challenge his friend Sergeant Sarah for a Thunder Badge, and for Anthony to enter the city's Junior Frontier Tournament. As a gesture of gratitude for their support, the Rangers offered to drive the trio to their next destination. With their new Pokémon eggs safely in hand and the promise of new adventures ahead, Mark, Anthony, and Rachel accepted the offer. Together, they began their journey to Vermilion City, ready for whatever challenges awaited them. Mark, Rachel, and Anthony were dropped off in Vermilion City by Pokémon Rangers Tommy and Kimberly. The news channels were abuzz with reports about a rampaging Zapdos, even featuring a segment on the 4 trainers who helped the Ranger Squad save the daycare. Although Mark, Rachel, and Anthony faced scoldings from their parents for putting themselves in danger, their parents soon expressed pride in their bravery. Darius and Ray were emotional as they said their goodbyes to the other Meowth, who were now part of the Ranger Squad. After the heartfelt farewells, Mark hurried to Vermilion City Gym to surprise his friend, Sergeant Sarah. The gym staff informed Mark that Sarah had gone to the Battle Club arena, where she would be a part of the judging panel. With that, the group decided to head to the Pokémon Center for a well-deserved rest. While there, Anthony asked Nurse Joy about the next Vermilion City Junior Frontier. She revealed that one was happening soon. Excited, Anthony dashed to the battle arena to register and was relieved to find that there was still one spot available. Nurse Joy also mentioned that the Vermilion City contest would be held on the new SS Anne, which was set to sail to Cinnabar Island in just 5 days. Mark pointed out that Cinnabar Island had a gym, so boarding the SS Anne would be perfect. Rachel could enter her contest while they all moved on to their next destination, like feeding 2 Pidgey with 1 scone. Excited, Rachel quickly registered for the contest, and they bought their tickets for the SS Anne. Just as they were wrapping up, Rachel suddenly screamed when she turned around to find a Lickitung trying to lick her face. Emma appeared at the Pokémon Center announcing that she too would be boarding the SS Anne to compete in the contest and confidently declared that she would be the solo Vermilion contest winner. Accompanying her were several of her Pokémon, including Gloom, Ponyta, Abra, and Smoochum. As Chansey brought out the trio's healed Pokémon, Rachel's Igglybuff immediately scowled at Emma's Smoochum. The 2 adorable baby Pokémon confronted each other, exchanging funny noises in a playful yet tense standoff. Rachel and Emma quickly pulled their Pokémon back, but Gasper revealed that Igglybuff and Smoochum seemed to have known each other from their days as wild Pokémon, a friendship that had turned sour, which Mark noted seemed oddly familiar. Emma then reassured her Smoochum, promising to prove she was the cutest Pokémon of all by defeating Igglybuff in the upcoming Pokémon contest. As Emma left, Anthony called Mark's Rotom phone to inform him that the opening ceremony at the Battle Club was about to begin. With that, the group quickly made their way over, returning Anthony's Pokémon to him. Rachel offered to take care of Anthony's Pokémon egg, ensuring it was in good hands while he focused on the upcoming event. Anthony headed backstage, where he encountered his rival, Chris. Chris wasted no time bragging about his recent achievement, revealing that he had won 5 Junior Frontier trophies, just short of becoming Kanto's greatest breakout trainer. He also mentioned his plan to challenge Misty for her title as regional champion once he reached his goal. Not that you will, but if you somehow manage to win 7 tournaments, which elite trainer will you choose to battle? Chris taunted. Anthony's thoughts immediately went to Silver, and his fist clenched with determination. You just worry about yourself, because I'm walking out of here with my 3rd trophy, he replied confidently. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena, introducing the panel of judges for the first event. First up was Don George, the seasoned Battle Club veteran, followed by Sergeant Sarah, a respected gym trainer, and finally, mythical Pokémon researcher Go of Vermilion City. Mark's eyes widened in surprise when he recognized Go, another former childhood friend of Ash. Don George then took the microphone, addressing the eager crowd. He explained the Vermilion City Junior Frontier took inspiration of the Alola region's Battle Royale. Each battle would feature 4 trainers, each deploying a single Pokémon in an intense 4-way battle bash. The Pokémon that emerged victorious from each battle would advance to the next round. The screen flashed with the names and faces of the 4 participants in the first battle. Anthony's heart skipped a beat as he saw his own image alongside those of his opponents. Susan, a girl he had defeated in his first tournament back in Viridian City. Colton, a bug catcher, and another rookie he had bested before. And finally, Lexa, a fierce-looking girl dressed in a karate uniform. Each trainer was escorted to a designated corner of the battlefield, each color-coded to their position. Anthony stood in the green corner, fittingly matching his family name. Susan was positioned in the blue corner, Colton in the yellow, and Lexa took her place in the red corner. As the battle began, the trainers wasted no time sending out their Pokémon. Anthony called forth mid-arena, its horn gleaming with anticipation. Susan released her Golbat, while Colton chose his Scyther, its sides glinting menacingly. Lexa, however, drew the most attention as she sent out a powerful Machoke, its muscles rippling with barely contained energy. Susan and Colton, seemingly on the same wavelength, both commanded their part flying types to attack Machoke. Golbat launched an air cutter while Scyther swooped in with a wing attack, both aiming to take down the perceived biggest threat. But Lexa's Machoke was unfazed. With a calm expression, Lexa ordered Machoke to bulk up, and the Pokemon's muscles swelled with newfound strength, easily enduring the onslaught. Then, with a swift and deadly precision, Machoke's fist crackled with electricity. In a blur of motion, it struck both Golbat and Cypher with thunder punches, delivering a devastating double one-hit KO. The arena fell silent for a moment as both flying types crashed to the ground, knocked out in an instant. Anthony and Nidorino stood frozen in shock, awed by Machoke's raw power. Meanwhile, Susan and Colton looked on heartbroken and stunned by the abrupt end to their battle. Nidorino shook off the shock of Machoke's power and charged forward with determination. However, Machoke was ready, grabbing Nidorino's horn mid-charge and hurling him across the battlefield with a powerful vital throw. Undeterred, Nidorino struggled to his feet just as Machoke moved in to grab him again. This time, Nidorino struck back with a sharp poison sting, causing Machoke to recoil in pain. Seizing the opportunity, Nidorino followed up with a swift double kick, sending Machoke staggering. Anthony quickly ordered an ice beam, and Nidorino unleashed a frosty blast. To everyone's surprise, Machoke responded by spewing a flamethrower, the fiery attack cutting through the beam and striking Nidorino hard. Despite the hit, Anthony cheered Nidorino on as he dragged himself back to his feet, refusing to give up. Machoke, seizing an opportunity to finish the battle, sprinted forward with a thunder punch, ready to strike. But as Nidorino charged in return, his horn began to glow. Not with the icy blue of Ice Beam, but with a brownish hue. Anthony's Pokedex beeped with an alert. Nidorino had just learned Drill Run. The horn enlarged and spun like a drill, and with a powerful thrust, Nidorino bashed into Machoke, sending the larger Pokemon flying across the battlefield. Machoke hit the ground hard, unable to continue. Lexa, who had been serious throughout the battle, allowed a smile to cross her face as she recalled her Machoke. She complimented Anthony on his skill, acknowledging the hard-fought victory. Anthony's momentum carried him through the next 2 rounds, with Beedrill and Fearow securing his wins. Meanwhile, Chris dominated his matches with his Dugtrio, Hitmonchan, and Charmeleon. As Mark watched Chris's Charmeleon in action, he wondered if his own Charmander Charlie was close to evolving. Despite scanning her with his Pokedex and confirming she was well past the level where evolution typically occurs, there had been no signs. Rachel reassured him, reminding him that as her uncle and great-grandfather had taught her, some Pokemon take longer to evolve than others of the same species. The final 4 trainers of the tournament entered the battlefield. Anthony and Chris were joined by a hiker named Franklin and a trainee engineer named Bernie. Anthony stood in the red corner, Chris in the blue, Franklin in the yellow, and Bernie in the green. Chris shot Anthony a scornful look, laughing when Anthony sent out his Dratini, mocking it as weak. Anthony, unfazed, responded with a defiant smirk, which only fueled Chris's anger. Chris, seething, released his next Pokemon, a golden, shiny Arbok. Franklin sent out Onix while Bernie released a Raichu, which brought a smile to Sergeant Sarah's face. As expected, Chris immediately ordered his Arbok to target Dratini, while Onix set its sights on Raichu. Raichu used its speed to evade Onix's rock throw attacks, darting around the battlefield. Arbok wrapped itself around Dratini, squeezing it tightly, but Dratini fought back with a Thunder Wave, paralyzing Arbok and freezing himself. Dratini followed up with a Twister, sending Arbok reeling. However, Arbok pushed through the paralysis, striking Dratini with a super effective Ice Fang. Meanwhile, Raichu cleverly countered Onix's brute strength with a Grass Knot, causing the massive rock type to stumble in pain. Enraged, Onix retaliated with a powerful Dragon Breath, knocking Raichu down. Arbok, still determined, slithered toward Dratini to finish it off with another Ice Fang. But before it could strike, Onix unleashed a devastating earthquake, shaking the entire battlefield. The ground split beneath them, and when the dust settled, Arbok was unable to continue. The crowd gasped in shock. Chris, the record-setting Junior Frontier participant, had been eliminated first. Dratini, though battered, managed to stand, but it was clear the battle had taken its toll. Raichu, however, had used its tail to launch itself into the air, narrowly avoiding the earthquake. As Raichu descended, its tail glowed silver. With a mighty iron tail, it struck Onix, taking the colossal Pokemon out of the fight. Now, only Raichu and the fragile Dratini remained on the battlefield. Anthony couldn't resist waving a sarcastic goodbye to a furious Chris before turning his attention back to Dratini, who was still in the thick of battle. "Hang in there, Dratini," he encouraged, watching as his Pokemon climbed out of the wreckage left by Onyx's earthquake. Dratini now faced Raichu, who was crackling with electricity, ready to unleash a Thunderbolt. Reacting quickly, Dratini used Thunder Wave to protect itself, disrupting Raichu's attack. With a swift follow-up, Dratini conjured a powerful Twister, sending Raichu tumbling backwards. Raichu struggled to its feet, but Anthony noticed something alarming. Raichu's lips were glowing pink. Realization hit him. Raichu knew Draining Kiss. Before he could react, Raichu charged toward Dratini, intent on sapping its remaining energy away. "Agility, now!" Anthony shouted, and Dratini responded in a flash, moving with blinding speed to dodge Raichu's attack. With Raichu off balance, Dratini quickly summoned another Twister, striking Raichu again. This time, Dratini's tail began to glow with a vibrant green light. Anthony's Pokedex beeped with excitement, revealing that Dratini had just learned Dragon Tail. Taking full advantage of Raichu's dazed state, Dratini slithered up and whipped its glowing tail with all its might, sending Raichu crashing to the ground. The crowd held its breath as the dust settled, and the referee declared, "Raichu is unable to battle! Dratini is the winner!" A wave of relief and joy washed over Anthony as he sprinted toward Dratini, scooping it up in a tight embrace. Together, they walked to the stage where Anthony was awarded his 3rd Junior Frontier Tournament trophy. But the surprises didn't end there. To his amazement, he also received a bonus prize, a box of rare candies, along with a month's supply of Pokemon food and grooming supplies. The cherry on top was the notification on his Rotom phone, informing him that he had just received his 15,000 Poké-Dollar reward, money he planned to send to his mother. Realization hit Anthony. He had just won back-to-back tournaments within a day, his motivation soaring. He was now just 4 tournaments away from dethroning Silver, a goal that felt more attainable with each victory. Outside the battle arena, Mark and Rachel were waiting for him, their faces beaming with pride. "You've been on a dominant roll lately, Anthony," Mark said, clapping him on the back. Rachel nodded in agreement. As they spoke, Chris stormed past them, still fuming from his earlier defeat. "Don't get too comfortable, Anthony. You won't be so lucky the next time we meet." Mark's eye caught sight of Sergeant Sarah walking out of the building with Go. Without hesitation, he ran over to them. Sarah's face lit up with delight when she saw him, though she didn't seem surprised.
Mark, I'm so glad to see you, but I can't say I'm surprised. I found out you stayed in Kanto when I saw you on the news, not once, but twice. First when you took down those Pokemon poachers in Cerulean City, and then again when you and your friends helped save the daycare center from the raging Zapdos.
Sarah's eyes shone with pride as she looked at him.
You've really come a long way, Mark. I'm not just proud, I'm impressed. 2 gym badges already. You're not the timid boy I met back in Johto. You've grown into a strong and confident trainer.
Sarah introduced Mark to Go, who quickly recognized Mark's family name and mentioned that he knew Mark's father, Mike, very well. Sarah then mentioned that Mark was a huge Ash Ketchum fan, which made Mark blush with embarrassment. Go smiled briefly at the comment, but his expression soon turned somber as he shared that he felt hopeless in his search for Ash. Despite meeting hundreds of mythical and legendary Pokemon in his time, Go admitted that he would trade it all just to find his old friend. However, the authorities had advised him against involvement, preferring to keep Ash's loved ones away from the investigation. Mark then introduced his friends Anthony and Rachel to Go. To Mark's surprise, Go already knew Rachel from her childhood when he visited Professor Oak's laboratory. Go mentioned that he would also be boarding the SS Anne to Cinnabar Island, where he planned to conduct research. Just as Mark was about to challenge Sarah, Go caught his attention with an unexpected offer. He mentioned that he would be honored to give the group a tour of the Cerise Research Laboratory that he now runs with his wife and father-in-law. The idea piqued everyone's interest, but Go wasn't finished. He confessed that watching the Junior Frontier Tournament had reignited his desire to battle, a feeling he hadn't experienced since his journeys with Ash. Then, to everyone's surprise, Go turned to Mark and issued a challenge for a battle. The group was taken aback by the sudden proposition, but none more shocked than Mark himself. The prospect of battling someone as experienced as Go was both exhilarating and intimidating, leaving Mark with a mixture of excitement and nerves. In a dark, abandoned warehouse, Team Justice stood in the shadows, listening intently to their leader on a holocall. His instructions were clear.
You must capture Ghost data on Mew. Go to Cerulean Laboratory and do whatever it takes to secure the data.
The atmosphere was tense as the call ended, and Team Justice, their resolve strengthened, prepared for their next move. Mark, Rachel, Anthony, and Sergeant Sarah walked through the streets of Vermilion City, still reeling from the unexpected challenge Go made to Mark. But first, they'll be visiting Cerulean Laboratory. They soon arrived at Cerulean Laboratory, a bustling hub of Pokémon research. Upon entering, they were greeted by the sight of researchers busy at their stations, surrounded by a variety of technology. Professor Cerise, the head of the lab and Go's father-in-law, welcomed the group, while Chloe, Go's wife and a Pokémon evolution expert, stood by his side. Chloe's Eevee quickly approached Rachel's Eevee, and the two Pokémon greeted each other with excitement. The group watched with smiles as the two Eevees played together. However, Go's expression soon grew more serious as he shared his discovery of Mew during the Pokémon War. His words stirred sadness in Sarah and Rachel, both of whom had lost their fathers in the conflict. The mention of the war brought back painful memories they had tried to suppress. The weight of the conversation deepened when Go revealed that Mew, once so familiar to him, hadn't been acting the same lately. He explained that Mew had been inexplicably drawn to Cinnabar Island, though the reason behind this behavior remained a mystery. Mark listened intently, his curiosity piqued at the mention of the island's strange pull. Sensing the need to ease the mood, Chloe invited the group outside to meet the Pokémon living at Cerise Park, which was the large natural reserve attached to Professor Cerise's lab, where the Pokémon could roam freely and live in a more natural environment. The group entered Cerise Park, the fresh air and open space providing the perfect environment for their Pokémon to enjoy some freedom. Rachel's Eevee immediately darted off to play with Chloe's Eevee, the two Pokémon dashing across the grass in a joyful game of chase. Meanwhile, Mark, Anthony, and Rachel brought out their own Pokémon to join the fun. Mark's Geodude Rocco hopped toward him with uncontained enthusiasm, accidentally tripping Mark with a playful bump. The group laughed as Mark hit the ground, grinning as he pulled himself back up. Sarah brought out her striking Electabuzz, which brought back memories to when Mark was attacked by the large, shiny Skarmory before he became a trainer. When Mark released Ray from her Pokeball, she was quickly approached by a curious Raichu. The electric mouse circled Ray with a thoughtful expression, as if recognizing Ray but unsure from where. Ray looked up at the larger Pokemon with wide eyes, uncertain but calm. Anthony, standing off to the side, cast a brief, unmistakable glare at Darius. Noticing the tension, Rachel tugged at his sleeve and whispered,
"What's your problem with Meowth?"
But before Anthony could respond, their attention shifted as three of Go's Pokemon bounded into view. Cinderace, Inteleon, and Grookey approached the group. Grookey, full of energy, leapt onto Mark's head and tapped him playfully with his stick. Rocco, still eager for attention, wrapped its stony hands around Mark's leg, causing him to stumble and fall once more. Laughter erupted again as Mark, caught off guard, found himself on the ground for the second time. Cinderace trotted over to meet Charlie. The two fire types exchanged friendly glances, their mutual respect evident. On the other side, Inteleon approached Dratini, staring down the small dragon with quiet curiosity. The park was filled with energy of the Pokémon as they all interacted, forming new bonds. As the group spread out, Chloe and Rachel took a long walk along a quiet path, their Eevees following closely behind. Chloe turned to Rachel, curious if she had thought about what evolution she wanted her Eevee to undergo. Rachel admitted that she wanted her Eevee to decide when the time came. Chloe smiled, recounting the journey she had shared with her own Eevee. She revealed how it had chosen to remain unevolved, a decision that helped Chloe realize that staying as an Eevee was just as valid an option. Inspired, Rachel considered this for her own Eevee, appreciating the freedom she could offer her Pokémon. Chloe also shared stories from her time participating in Pokémon contests, which Rachel found fascinating. The two then began training together, the Eevees practicing alongside them in the sunny park. Over by the river, Anthony stood silently, feeding rare candies to his Magikarp. He watched as the Pokémon happily gobbled them up, but the tension from earlier lingered in his expression. Sarah, noticing the brief glare he'd given Darius, approached him. She leaned in, her voice low, and asked if something was on his mind. Anthony paused before speaking, hesitating as he glanced over at Darius. After a deep breath, He asked Sarah to keep a secret. He then confessed that he hated Meowth and Persian, a dislike rooted in an incident from his childhood. A vague memory lingered of being attacked by a Persian, an event that left a scar on his back and a deep fear within him. Over time, that fear had turned to hatred, especially after the crimes Giovanni had done with his Persian. Anthony revealed that when he first met Rachel, he pretended to not know about Steven's death, but in truth, he knew one of the Pokémon responsible was Giovanni's Persian. His voice quiet, Anthony revealed that he loathed both Giovanni's Persian and the Meowth that had spent years chasing after Ash's Pikachu. He didn't want to upset Mark or Rachel, as they were the first friends he'd ever had in his 17 years, and he feared how they might react if they knew. Sarah gave him a kind but firm look, before offering advice her father once shared with her before he passed. She told Anthony that harboring hatred was like carrying a weight that only slowed him down. Her father had always believed that letting go of the past was the key to moving forward, even when it hurt. She reminded Anthony that his friends cared about him and wouldn't want him to suffer in silence. By being honest with them, he might find that they could help him heal from the pain he had been carrying for so long. Anthony listened, her words resonating with him, though he wasn't sure if he was ready to share everything with Mark and Rachel. He felt a bit lighter, knowing that he wasn't alone in his struggle. Meanwhile, Mark and Go had wandered to a more secluded area of the park. Go spoke quietly, sharing his concerns about Ash's recent disappearance. He feared it was linked to something darker, a larger evil at work. Muse seemed to sense it too, Go explained, growing increasingly disturbed in the recent weeks. Mark nodded, taking in the weight of Go's words. Mark's heart skipped a beat as Go turned to him with a confident smile.
It's time for our battle!
Go said, his voice carrying a sense of anticipation. The group quickly regrouped, with Sarah eagerly observing. She was curious to see how much Mark had grown as a Pokémon trainer, especially with their upcoming gym battle in mind. Mark, feeling the pressure, nodded in agreement. Go explained that it would be a one-on-one battle, leaving Mark to carefully consider his choice. After a brief pause, Mark confidently announced, "I'm choosing Charlie." His trusty Charmander appeared in a flash, flames flickering at the tip of her tail as she took a determined stance ready for action. To everyone's surprise, Go chose Grookey, a grass type, seemingly at a disadvantage against fire. However, Grookey stepped forward with a confidence that belied its small size. Only then did they notice the shimmering necklace around Grookey's neck, adorned with an Everstone. Go's Grookey was still in its first stage, was as experienced as any fully evolved Rillaboom. The battle began, with Go calling the first move. Grookey dashed forward, using Branch Poke with blinding speed. Charlie leapt back, narrowly avoiding the sharp strike. As it landed, Charlie spat Ember toward Grookey, but Grookey spun its stick in front of it, deflecting the embers in a whirlwind of motion. Grookey leapt into the air, flicking its stick as Sharp Leaf shot towards Charlie. The Razor Leaf sparkled in the sunlight. With a quick breath, Charlie exhaled a thick cloud of smokescreen that enveloped the battlefield. The Razor Leaf attack sliced through the smoke, but it was harder for Grookey to see its target clearly. Out of the smoke, Charlie launched itself at Grookey with a powerful Metal Claw attack. Go's expression turned serious.
Grookey! Woodhammer! Now!
Grookey's stick glowed bright green as it summoned its most powerful attack. Charlie, use Dragon Breath! Charlie unleashed a blazing stream of blue fire directly at it. The two attacks collided in midair, just as the intensity of the battle reached its peak. An ear-splitting alarm echoed through the park. A flashing red light appeared on the side of Cerise Laboratory. The gang quickly gathered together, realizing something was terribly wrong. The group rushed back to Cerise Laboratory. Inside, chaos had erupted. Professor Cerise and his staff were pinned against the walls by the psychic group of Drowsy from Team Justice, who stood at the center of the lab with eyes glowing menacingly. Next to it, a Clefairy and a Sandslash wreaked havoc, knocking over computers and shredding through files and papers. Mark's eyes widened as he saw Drowsy holding an electronic box. Its powers focused on transferring data from the lab's machines directly into the device. Before anyone could react, the door slammed open, and two familiar figures stepped inside. Madison and Levi of Team Justice stood with smug grins on their faces.
We finally have the information on Mew we need,
Madison declared, her eyes flashing with triumph.
Now we can bring justice back to the world.
Mark and the group tensed, ready to spring into action. Ghost Cinderace was already poised for battle, fire blazing at its feet. But before it could make a move, Madison and Levi activated jetpacks strapped to their backs. In an instant, they soared into the air, blasting through the lab doors and out into the park. Without hesitation, the group sprinted after them, racing outside in pursuit. The sound of jetpacks roared through the air as Madison and Levi flew towards the glass ceiling of the park, Drowsy preparing to smash it with psychic power. Out of nowhere, Scizor ambushed Team Justice, its claws gleaming in the sunlight. With blinding speed, it struck all three of them in midair, sending them tumbling down to the park. Madison scrambled to her feet, sending out Clefairy, while Levi brought back out Sandslash. The battle erupted into chaos as the three Pokémon stood ready to defend their stolen prize. Mark called on Gasper, who materialized in front of Drowsy. However, Drowsy used Confusion. A wave of psychic energy rippled towards Gasper, aiming to subdue the ghost type. But Gasper cackled and phased out of the attack, dodging it entirely. Gasper charged a Shadow Ball and launched it towards Drowsy. The attack hit squarely, sending Drowsy staggering back. Meanwhile, Cinderace faced off against Clefairy. Clefairy twirled and sent a barrage of metronome attacks, the randomness of the moves keeping Cinderace on its toes. A sudden thunderbolt crackled towards Cinderace, but with nimble footwork, the fire Pokemon dodged and launched itself into the air with a powerful Pyro Ball. The flaming projectile struck Clefairy hard, knocking it off balance. Out of nowhere, Sandslash dived over Sarah, and Electabuzz was too far away. Ghost suddenly leapt in front of Sarah, shielding her from the descending sharp claws. Rocco soared in front of them, taking the attack using Iron Defense. Rocco then used Rock Throw, but Sandslash deflected the stones with ease. Sandslash launched into a rapid rollout, spinning across the battlefield with brutal force. Rocco braced itself, enduring the blow, but showing signs of fatigue. Sandslash's momentum grew as the attack continued, forcing Rocco into a corner. Mark clenched his fists, sensing that Rocco was struggling. Suddenly, Rocco's eyes glowed with a fierce determination. As Sandslash came barreling toward it for a final hit, Rocco's form began to shimmer and expand. Rocco had evolved into a beastly Graveler! Mark's heart leapt as he saw his Pokemon in new form. Now, Rocco, use Rollout! Mark commanded. Rocco charged forward with immense power. The two Pokemon clashed in a violent rollout collision. With one mighty blow, Rocco's rollout crushed the Sandslash's defense, leaving it defeated. As the battle raged on, Grookey quietly sneaked toward the fallen box of data. With a playful grin, it used its stick to whack the box, knocking it into the air as Charlie dashed forward and leapt into the air, catching the box. With the box secured, the group turned their attention back to Team Justice. All of their Pokemon rallied together. Cinderace unleashed another Pyro Ball, while Rocco hurled massive rocks with Rock Throw. Electabuzz used Thunderbolt. The combined force of their attacks overwhelmed Madison, Levi, and their team. Realizing they were outmatched, Madison and Levi gritted their teeth. They reached for their belts and tossed down smoke bombs, filling the area with thick, billowing clouds of smoke. As the smoke obscured the battlefield, Team Justice activated their jetpacks and soared into the sky, disappearing into the distance before anybody could stop them. As the smoke cleared, the group regrouped. Charlie held the stolen data box safely, and all the Pokemon stood victorious. Though Team Justice had escaped, the group had successfully recovered the data and foiled their plan. For now, the mystery of Mew would remain safe. With the battle over and Team Justice having fled, Professor Cerise approached the group with a sense of relief.
I can't thank you all enough. You've protected valuable research and data.
Rocco, still as affectionate towards Mark as a Graveler, rolled towards him, but his eagerness caused this gentle roll to form into an intense rollout. Rocco bashed into Mark, sending him flying and crashing into the river. Mark's soaked head popped out of the water, and the group laughed as he swam back to land. Sarah stepped forward with a determined glint in her eyes. She crossed her arms and looked directly at Mark, a confident smirk playing on her lips.
I can't wait to see how you handle yourself in our gym battle, Mark. I've seen what you can do today, but don't think for a second I'll be holding back. You better be ready.
Mark met her gaze, feeling the excitement of the challenge rise within him. He nodded, already preparing himself mentally for the battle to come. Both Rocco and EliteMJ gave each other the same gaze, both ready to test their strength against one another. After a long day helping Go's family protect Cerulean Laboratory, Mark, Rachel, and Anthony were invited to stay the night. Mark and Anthony shared a room with bunk beds, both eager for some much-needed rest. Mark in particular knew he needed to be fully rested. Tomorrow, he would be facing Sergeant Sarah at the Vermilion City Gym for his next big challenge. The night passed peacefully until Mark was suddenly awoken by a sharp whack on the head. Grookey, with his mischievous grin, had struck Mark with its stick. The loud yell caused Anthony to jolt out of bed, falling from the top bunk with a thud. Grookey broke into uncontrollable laughter at the chaos it had caused. Rachel, hearing the commotion, quickly popped her head in. She blushed, noticing Anthony was still in his underwear, and hurriedly told them that breakfast was ready before quickly retreating. Once in the dining room, Mark and Anthony sat down with Go, Chloe, and Professor Cerise. Go asked Mark if he was ready for Sarah, knowing that Mark had already earned 2 badges. He mentioned that Sarah would likely propose a 3-on-3 battle, and Mark felt a surge of excitement. He planned to use his newly evolved Graveler, but he was still considering which other 2 Pokémon to bring. Mark was thrilled when Go and Chloe mentioned they would be coming to the gym to watch the battle. Professor Cerise reminded Go that the SSN would be docking that evening on its way to Cinnabar Island, where Go hoped to learn more about Mew and its mysterious connection to the island. Rachel also mentioned that she and the boys would be boarding the SSN as well, where she would compete in her next Pokémon contest. The trio eagerly anticipated the trip to Cinnabar Island with Go, and Mark secretly hoped he might encounter Go's friend, the mystical Mew, during the journey. After breakfast, Mark, Anthony, and Rachel said their farewells to Professor Cerise and his team before heading to the Vermilion City Gym with Go and Chloe. Upon arriving at the gym, they were greeted by Visquez, the stand-in gym leader who had stepped in whenever Sarah was unavailable. She revealed that Sarah had been taking on challengers tirelessly every day, and it had been a while since Visquez had to step in. Visquez was worried Sarah might be overworking herself. They entered the gym's lobby where a large statue of Lieutenant Surge stood in tribute to the former gym leader of Vermilion City. Standing before the monument was a Raichu, its ears and tail torn, and its eye bearing a scar. The wounds were remnants of the Pokémon War 3 years ago. At that moment, Go's Raichu, ever energetic, popped out of its Pokeball and dashed towards Surge's Raichu. The 2 Pokemon embraced each other fondly, their bond evident as they shared a joyful reunion. Just then, Sarah entered the lobby. Surge's Raichu leapt towards her in excitement, clearly thrilled to see the daughter of its late trainer. Raichu started making sounds to Sarah and she responded.
Raichu, no, you can't battle for me. I've selected the perfect team to face Mark. You can cheer me on with the others.
Raichu looked visibly disappointed and Visquez sighed. Sarah turned to Go, thanking him again for his courageous act of jumping in between her and Sandslash. Go was about to say something, but then he glanced up at the statue of Surge, then remained quiet. Sarah approached Mark.
When we met back at Johto, you were a timid boy, but I see a spark in your eyes. I knew this day would come when you would challenge me at my gym, but I won't be going easy on you, Mark.
I wouldn't expect it any other way, Mark said excitedly. The group entered the battle arena. Mark handed his Pokemon egg to Rachel to look after during the battle. She then joined Anthony, Go, and Chloe at the seating area. Visquez said that she would be the referee, and announced that it would indeed be a 3-on-3 battle, with only Mark allowed to make substitutions. Tension and excitement were thick in the air as Mark and Sarah stared at one another across the room. Sarah tossed a Pokeball, and out came a mean-looking Voltorb, rolling around the battlefield with great speed. Mark tossed a Love Ball, and Ray the Pichu popped out. This made Sarah smile.
I was meant to tell you yesterday, Mark, that it was fitting that I gave you my father's red gloves he wore as a rookie trainer. And now you have a Pichu, his very first Pokemon.
Sarah glanced up at her father's Raichu. Both looked down with teary eyes. I wear them with honor, Mark said, and then the battle began. Ray started the match with a quick attack, but the opposing Pokemon barely flinched, seemingly unfazed. Voltorb rolled and used Rollout. She shook her head, trying to regain her focus, clearly feeling the impact of the hit. Mark called out to Ray to use Thunderbolt as she charged up her electric power, cheeks sparking. Ray released a fierce jolt towards Voltorb. The electricity zapped Voltorb, causing it to wince from the supercharged hit. Voltorb countered with Light Screen, creating a shimmering barrier of light around itself to reduce the damage from Ray's future special attacks. Determined, she charged forward with another quick attack, hoping to get around Voltorb's defenses. She landed a solid hit, but Voltorb retaliated with Swift, pelting her with rapid hits. Ray cried out, but stood her ground, now visibly worn, but still filled with fighting spirit. Voltorb switched tactics and used Charge Beam, hitting Ray directly while the move boosted Voltorb's special attack, making its electric moves even more dangerous. Mark called for a tract, and the onlookers gasped. Chloe called out and said Voltorb was a genderless Pokemon, which made it immune to attract. The hesitation caused Ray to be struck by another Charge Beam. Mark knew Ray needed to end this quickly and called for another Thunderbolt. Despite the light screen, Ray channeled everything she had, sending an intense surge of electricity at Voltorb. The light screen absorbed some of the blow, but the sheer power behind Ray's attack broke through, striking Voltorb with a critical hit and leaving it momentarily stunned. Seizing the opportunity, Mark commanded one last quick attack. Ray dashed forward with all her remaining speed that sent Voltorb skidding across the field. It struggled to rise, but ultimately collapsed. Fainted. Sarah smiled, clearly impressed with both Mark and Ray as she returned Voltorb to its Pokeball. The onlookers exchanged curious glances, wondering why Mark wasn't taking advantage of the opportunity to switch out Pokemon. They were baffled by his decision to keep Ray in the battle, but Mark smirked, as if he had a plan. Sarah tossed another Pokeball, and out came a striking Jolteon, howling at Ray, intimidating her. Mark called for Volt Switch, but Sarah ordered Jolteon to use Dig. Mark's plan was foiled, and Ray was hit with a super effective move, knocking her out of battle. Mark was fallen under the pressure. His ideas haven't been working as well as he thought. Before he could return Ray, Go's Raichu appeared. She handed Ray an Oranberry, picked her up, and brought her to the seating area to watch the rest of the battle. Mark then brought out Rocco the Graveler, who quickly rolled to Mark with affection, knocking him over in the process. Mark helped Rocco focus, and it turned its attention to Jolteon. Jolteon darted forward to open with Sand Attack that struck Rocco in the eyes. Jolteon followed up with a double kick. Rocco grunted, taking the hits but barely budging, its rugged body built to withstand physical attacks. In response, Mark commanded Rocco to use Iron Defense. Jolteon used Dig, disappearing underground in a flash. Suddenly, Jolteon burst from the ground beneath him, landing a solid hit. Rocco stumbled slightly. Mark saw his chance and called for a Bulldoze. Rocco stomped the ground with force, creating a shockwave that rippled across the field. Jolteon yelped as it was caught in the powerful ground-type move, causing considerable damage. Jolteon recovered and attempted another Sand Attack, hoping to lower Rocco's accuracy even more. Rocco shook off the dust, though his vision was now even more impaired. Mark urged him to use Rollout. The first attempt missed, but Rocco gained momentum, spinning back around with increased speed. Rocco's Rollout connected, sending Jolteon tumbling back from the impact. Jolteon staggered, struggling to keep its footing, clearly feeling the weight of Rocco's relentless assault. With one last burst effort, Jolteon attempted double kick again, but Rocco's boosted defense absorbed the blows. Rocco then used Rock Throw that struck with precision, landing Jolteon skidding back until it finally lay still, unable to battle. Sarah began to sweat, though she was exhilarated. She hadn't faced a challenge like this in a long time. She brought out her ace Pokemon, Electabuzz, who stared down Rocco. However, Mark returned his Graveler to give it a good rest. He sent out Charlie, and Sarah was excited to battle with his special starter Pokemon. Sarah recounted the time she traveled from Johto to Kanto with Mark and his family. All Mark did was talk about getting his Charmander, and now she facing off against it was a surreal moment for Sarah. She felt like a proud big sister. Electabuzz quickly started the match by using Thunder Punch, hitting Charlie directly. Mark quickly instructed Charlie to use Ember, but the damage was minor. Electabuzz grinned, barely phased, and went on the defensive with Protect, creating a barrier that deflected Charlie's next Ember. Mark decided to shift tactics, calling for Dragon Breath. Charlie unleashed a blue fire which crashed against Electabuzz as its Protect faded. The attack's power took Electabuzz by surprise, giving Charlie a momentary edge. However, Electabuzz retaliated with Brick Break. Its powerful fist came down on Charlie, hitting her with a strong, precise blow. She stumbled back, clearly hurt but refusing to give in. Feeling a surge of determination, Charlie conjured a swirling fire spin, surrounding Electabuzz in a vortex of flames. Mark cheered as Charlie discovered this new move mid-battle, impressed by her tenacity. Electabuzz, however, wasn't done yet. With a roar, it unleashed Thunderbolt, striking Charlie. Shaken but not defeated, she managed a Metal Claw, slashing at Electabuzz, but it barely did any damage. Electabuzz smirked before hitting Charlie with a direct Thunder Punch from its left hand, then immediately striking her with Brick Break with its right. Charlie was knocked out and unable to battle. Mark praised Charlie before returning her, and Sarah mentioned she was very impressed with their bond. Mark took a deep breath and sent out Rocco, who was refreshed from his short rest. A glint of hope shined in Mark's eyes as he seen Electabuzz still affected by Fire Spin Vortex. Electabuzz opened with Brick Break, its powerful fist slamming against Rocco's rocky surface, and he flinched back. Mark called for Bulldoze. Rocco stomped the ground, sending a shockwave towards Electabuzz, who staggered from the intense ground move. The Fire Spin flames flickered around Electabuzz, adding to its fatigue as it struggled to regain its footing. Not backing down, Electabuzz retaliated with a quick Protect, anticipating Rocco's next move and blocking a powerful Rock Throw. Electabuzz used the moment to charge forward, delivering another Brick Break with renewed force. This time, Rocco staggered, the repeated attacks beginning to wear on him. Mark commanded Rocco to use Iron Defense. Rocco seemed nearly impervious as Electabuzz went in for another Brick Break, its fist hitting with diminished effect. Rocco barely flinched. Electabuzz, now visibly frustrated and still partially trapped by the fading Fire Spin, attempted a final push. It used Thunderbolt to strike the battlefield that distracted Rocco, its Iron Defense lowering. Electabuzz then struck Rocco with a powerful Brick Break. With a command from Mark, Rocco unleashed Rollout, sending Electabuzz skidding back. Rocco spun around and charged again, each rollout hit gaining power. Rocco crashed into Electabuzz with immense force, sending it sprawling across the battlefield. Electabuzz struggled to rise, but ultimately collapsed, defeated! Rocco stood victorious, breathing heavily but triumphant. Mark jumped with excitement while Sarah exhaled in relief, returning Electabuzz with a smile. With that, Sarah handed Mark the Thunder Badge. Charlie popped out of her Pokeball and Ray dove over to join them. Rocco scooped up Mark as if he was his prize, and the four of them celebrated their hard-fought victory. Mark was then congratulated by Rachel, Anthony, and Chloe. Go approached him grinning.
"You remind me so much of Ash!"
he said, and Mark struggled to hold back tears. It was the greatest compliment he could ever receive. Visquez and Surge's Raichu approached Sarah, offering comforting smiles. Sarah looked at Raichu and apologized for never allowing it to battle since the Pokemon War. After losing her father, she had never been able to bring herself to adopt Raichu as her own Pokemon, fearing it might get hurt under her care. Raichu meant the world to her. It had been a part of her entire life. But after facing Mark, Sarah realized that there was a world out there filled with powerful trainers, and she was determined to beat them all. Sarah asked Raichu if it wanted to go on a journey with her, and Raichu eagerly agreed. Sarah turned to Visquez, who gave her a knowing look. Visquez promised the gym would be in good hands until Sarah does decide to come back. Later that evening, Sarah and Chloe said farewell to Mark, Anthony, Rachel, and Go as they prepared to board the SS Anne 2.0. Chloe wished Rachel well in her upcoming Pokemon contest, promising that when she entered the Kanto Grand Festival, Chloe would be there to cheer her on. Sarah approached Rachel and handed her a Thunderstone, offering it as a gift for her Eevee if she wanted to try evolving it. Rachel presented the Thunderstone to Eevee, who sniffed it curiously. However, her reaction was the same as when she'd been offered the Waterstone. Eevee rejected it, and then went back to Chloe's Eevee to say goodbye. Ray then said her goodbyes to the two Raichu, who seemed very fond of her. Sarah nodded to Anthony.
Your friends will always be there for you, no matter what.
She turned to Mark, thanking him for the amazing battle, and handing him the Thunderstone as a parting gesture. Mark smiled. "After I win the Indigo Plateau, I'll return your father's training gloves." He then thanked Sarah. "If I hadn't met you, my old anxious mindset would have stopped me from becoming a trainer." The trio were ready to begin their next adventure, though Ghost seemed distracted, staring at the winter night sky. It was as if something or someone was troubling his mind. Please. No, Master! Please! No!
Why did you spare me? You have uses for me.
My life is yours, my lord.
And like all the rest of them,
My life is for you, almighty, all-powerful Muse!
I was created as a weapon. But now, all will kneel to me.
All hail Muse! All hail Muse! All hail Muse! All hail Muse! All hail Muse!
And now, it is time to hunt for legends.
The SS Anne 2.0 sailed across the icy Kanto seas on this winter's day. Mark, Anthony, Rachel, and Go were feeling the festive spirit as the entire cruise ship was decked out for the holiday season. With all their recent adventures, the trio had completely forgotten that Christmas was approaching, and the sudden realization hit them. This would be their first Christmas away from home. Go tried to cheer them up by taking them around the Christmas market and buying them each an ornament. He treated them to dinner before heading to the movies to watch a classic Christmas film. Go had to leave them at the lounge area to make a phone call. Rachel let out a sigh.
I have to train for the upcoming contest in a couple of days. It'll be at the SS Anne's auditorium.
Suddenly, she was approached by her rival, Emma, with her smoochum perched on her shoulder. As if sensing its presence, Igglybuff popped out of its moonball and confronted Smoochum.
Rachel, if I were you, I wouldn't bother training for the contest. I'm going to win, and I'll be the princess of the seas.
Emma and Smoochum walked away, leaving Rachel and Igglybuff fuming.
Hey, Rach, what happened between you two?
Anthony asked, noticing her anger.
It all started
5 Christmases ago.
The memory began on a chilly late afternoon in the park. Rachel and Emma were just 10 years old and had just finished school for the holiday season. Rachel appeared frustrated.
I still can't believe they changed the trainer age to 15! It's not fair! I should have been out there by now, traveling with my own Pokémon!
Emma glanced at her friend.
I know, Rach, but we'll still get our chance. Besides, I'm not sure I even want to be a trainer. I've been thinking of becoming a star, like one of those famous performers.
Rachel paused.
You know, it's my dream to be a top coordinator like Serena, Dawn, and May. But haven't you heard the rumors? There might be a Pokémon war. My dad's already worried about it. He says everything could change. I've heard about the rumors too, but Rachel, you're an oak and a stone. Your family is one of the wealthiest in Kanto and Hoenn. You'll be fine no matter what happens. What's that supposed to mean?
Emma hesitated, realizing she'd struck a nerve, but pressed on.
I just mean, you'll always have your family's money and connections. Some of us won't have it that easy.
The words hit Rachel like a slap.
So that's what you think of me? That I'm just some spoiled rich girl who doesn't have to worry about anything? That's not fair, Emma. You know nothing about what it's like to be part of this family.
Before Emma could respond, a faint hissing sound interrupted them. Both girls turned around to see a group of Ekans slithering toward them. The girls bolted from the playground, weaving through the park into a narrow alleyway, the Ekans slithering after them. Suddenly, the Ekans stopped. Rachel and Emma turned to see why, and their hearts sank. A massive muck oozed into the alleyway, its toxic sludge bubbling as it advanced. Rachel stumbled and fell to the ground.
Emma!
She cried, reaching out as the muck loomed closer. But Emma didn't stop. She froze for a moment, looking back at Rachel, her face full of fear and hesitation, before she just turned and ran, leaving Rachel behind. Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as the muck closed in. Its stench filled the air, and she scrambled backwards, unable to find her footing. She screamed, tears streaming down her face until a sudden wave of energy stopped the muck in its tracks. A blast of psychic energy struck the muck, sending it reeling. Rachel looked up in awe as a shiny Metagross descended into the alley, using Psychic to hurl the muck far away. Emerging from the shadows was Steven Stone, his face etched with concern as he ran to her side. Rachel sobbed as she threw herself into Steven's arms.
I hate her! I hate Emma! She left me! And I hate poison types! I hate them all!
Steven held her tightly, his voice calm and soothing.
Rachel, don't say that. You must never hate anyone. Not every poison type is like that muck. And not every person is what they seem.
Rachel's cries quieted as she listened, but her tears continued to fall. Steven gently wiped them away and gave her a warm smile.
You're stronger than this, my princess. You'll see. And no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you.
So that's why you hated poison types? Mark asked as we returned to the present. Rachel nodded and admitted that that day traumatized her, and after her father died, her fear of poison types got worse. Rachel admitted that she adored her Nidorina and Gloom and the other poison types in her group, but she still had some fear of them. Anthony said he had his fair share of holiday traumas and recounted a memory he had from 10 years ago when he was just 7 years old. It was Christmas Day. Anthony was watching a battle from the World Coronation series on the dated television. Ash Ketchum had just defeated Volcano. Anthony cheered loudly, his voice echoing through the dimly lit and slightly run-down apartment. His mother Hillary shuffled behind him, her face weary. It was Christmas Day, but the atmosphere in their small apartment was far from festive. As Anthony continued to watch, Hillary's phone rang. She answered it hesitantly, and her tone quickly became pleading.
Please, it's Christmas Day. I've worked 6 days straight. I can't find a sitter this late. Yes, I understand. I'll be there.
She hung up and with a sigh turned to Anthony, who had turned to face her with a concerned expression. Hillary had guilt written all over her face.
You're going to work?
I don't have a choice, Anthony. I'm sorry.
But it's Christmas!
Anthony protested, his voice breaking.
You promised we'd spend it together!
Hillary closed her eyes, struggling with her emotions.
I know, sweetheart, but we need the money. I'll make it up to you. I promise.
Then I'll come with you,
Anthony said, standing up with determination.
You can't. It's not safe.
Why not? What kind of cleaning job is it?
Hillary didn't answer, her silence only fueling his frustration. She hugged him tightly, kissed his forehead, and then locked the apartment door as she left, leaving Anthony alone. Anthony paced the room fuming.
I'm going to give her boss a piece of my mind!
Determined, he began searching for the spare key. After rummaging through drawers and cabinets, he found a spare key hidden in a jar. Minutes later, he was out the door racing to the curb. He spotted the bus his mother had boarded just moments ago. Thinking quickly, he saw an abandoned bike nearby and without hesitation, hopped on. He pedaled as fast as his legs could manage, following the bus for over an hour until it stopped in a rural area. Hillary stepped off and began walking toward the forest, and Anthony trailed her, keeping his distance. As he followed her through the woods, Anthony's heart raced with both excitement and fear. When Hillary emerged into a clearing, Anthony's breath caught. In the middle of nowhere stood a massive building, emblazoned with a large red R. His stomach dropped.
Team Rocket? Mom works for Team Rocket?
He watched as Hillary entered the base, but the heavy doors slammed shut before he could reach them. Anthony spotted a vent and climbed inside, his small frame allowing him to crawl through the ducts with relative ease. As he navigated the vents, he heard his mother's voice. Peeking through the grates, he saw her being scolded by Mattori, Giovanni's secretary.
You're late. Giovanni's coming tomorrow. This place needs to be spotless.
Hillary apologized profusely. Anthony's heart ached for her.
She's just a cleaner.
He realized, the anger in his chest softening.
She has to take any job she can get, but nothing is worth this.
Continuing through the vents, Anthony overheard Jesse, James, and Meowth discussing their latest plans to capture Pikachu. Their nervous chatter about Giovanni's arrival made them shiver. He crawled onward, but as he peered through another vent, he saw a red-haired boy ahead and quickly ducked out of sight. He didn't know who that boy was, but something about him felt dangerous. Eventually, Anthony exited the vents and found himself in a dark hallway. Suddenly, a Persian emerged from the shadows, its glowing eyes locking onto him. With a growl, it lunged. Anthony screamed as the Pokemon's claws raked his back, sending him tumbling to the floor. The Persian prepared to strike again, but before it could, a blast of water struck it, forcing it to retreat. Anthony's vision blurred, and the last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the silhouette of a Pokemon. When Anthony woke up, he was in a hospital bed. His mother, Hillary, sat beside him, her face pale and tearful.
Anthony, I was so worried.
I don't want you to work for Team Rocket anymore. I don't care if we're poor. I'd rather live on the streets than have you work for them.
Hillary's eyes filled with guilt and sorrow. Before she could respond, a nurse entered the room.
I couldn't help overhearing. I know someone who might be able to help. Nurse Joy at the Cerulean City Pokemon Center is looking for a cleaner. I can put in a good word for you.
Hillary's relief was palpable. She turned back to Anthony, holding his hands tightly.
I promise, Anthony. I'll quit. I'll do everything I can to give us a better life. No more Team Rocket.
Anthony snapped back to reality. Wow, so that's why you hate Team Rocket. Your mother had no choice but to work for them, and they treated her badly, Mark said. I can't believe you got hurt by that Persian.
Yeah, your story explains a lot.
Rachel added, giving Anthony a knowing look. She understood why he always gave Darius nasty glares, but Mark was still unaware. Anthony quickly changed the subject.
Oh, so, Mark, what were Christmases like in the Masters household?
They were mostly great, except for that one 7 years ago, Mark replied, a hopeless expression crossing his face.
Johto's Dark Christmas?
Rachel asked. She, like the rest of the world, knew too well what had happened 7 years ago in the Johto region, on Christmas Day of all days. The memory began with 8-year-old Mark sitting on the couch, glued to the television as Ash Ketchum faced Tobias in an electrifying match, successfully defending his world championship title. Mark cheered, his fists pumping in the air. I want to be just like him one day! His mother, Mia, chuckled softly as she walked into the room.
Well, little champion, why don't you start by telling your father and grandfather that dinner is almost ready?
Mark bolted out the door, the cool breeze of New Bark Town brushing his face. On the way, he passed his grandpa, who was lovingly tending to his meganium. Suddenly, a mischievous Apom swooped in and snatched Mark's hat right off his head. Mark yelled, taking off after the cheeky Pokemon. Apom chittered playfully as it led Mark on a wild chase across the enclosed landscape and out into the open streets of New Bark Town. Mark's pursuit was briefly interrupted when a formation of jets roared through the sky above, their engines deafening. He stared in awe for a moment before shaking it off and continuing after the Apom. But as he turned a corner, two older boys stepped out in front of him. "Well, if it isn't Marcus the Carcass," one of them sneered. Mark froze, fear gripping him. The boys laughed harder, emboldened by his silence. They shoved him to the ground, their mocking words cutting deeper than any physical blow. Just as Mark started to curl into himself, he heard familiar voices. "Leave him alone!" shouted Malcolm, Mark's older triplet. Maven, his other triplet, stood beside him, fists clenched and his glare sharp enough to make the bullies falter. The two bullies hesitated before running off, their laughter echoing behind them. "Cowards!" Maven shouted. "You gotta toughen up, Mark. Stand your ground next time." Before Mark could respond, a sound caught his attention, a high-pitched cry. He looked up to see the Apom holding his hat but pointing toward the sky. Mark followed its gaze, and his heart sank. Jets with the unmistakable red R symbol roared overhead, their bellies releasing bombs that rained destruction across Johto. Explosions rocked the earth as buildings crumbled, fires spread, and chaos erupted. "Run!" Maven shouted, grabbing Mark's arm and pulling him along. Malcolm followed close behind, their steps frantic as they dodged falling debris and blasts of flame. The once familiar streets of New Bark Town were now unrecognizable, littered with rubble and panic-stricken people. When they finally reached home, Mark froze. Their house, the place where they had shared countless memories, was now a smoldering ruin. Mark's chest tightened, his breaths coming in short gasps. He clutched his fists, unable to control the panic surging through him. "Mark, breathe," Malcolm said. "In and out. You're okay. We're okay." Mark nodded shakily, following his brother's guidance until his breathing steadied. Together, they ran to the enclosed landscape, desperate to find their mother. They found Mia, her arms outstretched as she tried to calm the rampaging Pokémon that had lost their homes and loved ones. An enraged Ursaring charged at them, its eyes wild with grief. Mia shielded her sons with her body, bracing for the impact. But before the Ursaring could strike, a Typhlosion burst onto the scene. It roared and leapt into battle, clashing with the Ursaring in a fierce fight. Typhlosion emerged victorious, and Mark's father Mike appeared moments later, pulling the family into a protective huddle. "We need to find Grandpa," Mike said urgently. Their search didn't take long. They heard anguished screams and rushed to find Grandpa kneeling over his fallen Meganium. The Pokémon had been caught in the crossfire, its lifeless body lying amidst the devastation. Grandpa sobbed uncontrollably. Mike tried to pull him away, but Grandpa resisted, unwilling to leave his partner behind as the fires closed in. Then, the sky darkened. Mark looked up in awe as Lugia descended from the clouds. With a sweep of its wings, it summoned a torrential downpour, quelling the flames and bringing relief to the scorched earth. As Lugia prepared to leave, it paused and glanced down at Mark, its piercing eyes meeting his. Mark felt a sense of calm wash over him, the legendary Pokemon's presence both humbling and inspiring. He watched in silence as Lugia disappeared into the horizon, leaving him breathless and tearful. "Giovanni will pay for this," Mike said, his voice filled with rage. Not long after that, the Dark Alliance attacked other regions. At least they were prepared. But Johto wasn't on that day. That Christmas day, Mark said sadly. The trio felt their bond deepen after sharing stories of their Christmas past. Anthony wanted to tell Mark that the trauma he had endured caused him to hate Meowth in Persian, which included Darius, but he didn't feel it was the right time. Go returned from his phone call and immediately sensed something was different about the trio. He asked them to follow him, and they went outside, approaching the railing. They stared up at the night sky, and fireworks erupted in different colors. Over the next few days, the trio enjoyed spending time with Go as they made their way to Cinnabar Island. Mark and Anthony helped Rachel prepare for her upcoming contest, and she began to feel confident again. The four of them spent Christmas Day together, enjoying a nice meal and calling their families. Mark was disappointed there were no updates on Maven and Malcolm, but he was happy to see his grandfather. "Hey, Gramps," Mark said with a smile on the video call. "Johto forever!"
That's right, my boy. Johto forever.
Grandpa cheered, leaving Mark with a tear in his eye. Though he wasn't spending Christmas with his family, he realized how much he missed them, and how much he loved them, with all his heart. Misty flew gracefully on her Togekiss, soaring over a forest, guiding it to a smooth landing in a small clearing. Misty tapped the chirping Togekiss on the back before returning it to its Pokeball. Misty looked around, scanning the dense trees as she recalled the meeting point. She could hear branches rustling, and she looked up to see a young woman swinging from vine to vine until she dived down to meet Misty, and the two embraced fondly. Both Unova and Kanto champions wore jumpsuits. However, Misty wore blue and Iris's were purple. The two then wondered where the rest of their group were. And just like that, there was more rustling, this time from the bushes, announcing the arrival of two more figures. Dawn and May, two of the top 3 coordinators of the world, emerged from the forest path, their faces lighting up at the sight of Misty and Iris. The 4 women exchanged greetings and started catching up. After a moment, Misty looked around, a concerned expression crossing her face.
We're still missing someone. Do you think she went ahead without us?
Misty asked. The group fell silent, their thoughts turning to their missing companion. Determined, they continued to trek through the forest, following the path until they came to a small, weathered shed. Standing in front of it was Serena, her face set with a look of determination.
I couldn't wait any longer. I have to find my fiancé,
Serena said, turning to face them. Misty, Iris, Dawn, and May approached Serena, their expressions softening with understanding.
We'll find him, together,
Dawn said. Serena nodded, her resolve firm. The group turned their attention to the shed, which seemed out of place in the dense forest.
This doesn't look like the old Team Rocket headquarters we were expecting,
Iris remarked. Dawn stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. She got a funny feeling about the place. She began to poke around the junk inside the shed, and soon Iris joined her. After a moment of searching, Iris found a small hidden button beneath a pile of old tools. With the press of the button, the floor of the shed shifted and revealed a secret staircase leading down into darkness.
This is it! We're one step closer to finding Ash,
May said. The hidden staircase led the women into the depths of an eerie underground headquarters. The air grew colder as they descended, the dim light from above fading until they reached the bottom and found themselves in near darkness. Serena flicked on a flashlight, its beam slicing through the gloom, revealing long-forgotten hallways lined with cracked tiles and walls covered in peeling paint. As they ventured further, they passed through what appeared to have once been laboratories. In one of the rooms, they stumbled upon their first grisly discovery. The skeletal remains of a scientist lay slumped against a wall, still clad in a tattered lab coat. The sight froze them in their tracks. A collective gasp escaped their lips. Without speaking, they pressed on, their determination outweighing their fear. The corridors grew darker and narrower, each step taking them deeper into the heart of the abandoned lair. Suddenly, a chilling howl echoed through the halls, sending shivers down their spines. Ghost Pokémon began to materialize, their eerie forms drifting through the air. Haunter, Dusclops, and Miss Magius floated around them, drawn to the death that lingered in these halls. Misty, with a swift motion, released Blastoise. A torrent of water from Blastoise's Hydro Pump blasted one of the Haunters, sending it reeling. Dawn followed suit, commanding Piplup to unleash a barrage of bubbles with Bubble Beam, pushing back the ghostly figures. May's Blaziken roared, spewing flames that illuminated the darkness and scattered the ghost Pokémon. Iris directed her Haxorus, whose claws slashed through the ethereal forms with deadly precision. Serena's Delphox stood firm, eyes glowing as it unleashed a wave of psychic energy that disoriented their spectral adversaries. The women and their Pokémon fought with relentless determination, driving back the spectral horde. As the last of the ghost Pokemon faded away, they took a moment to catch their breath, their hearts pounding in their chests. The corridors became a labyrinth of decay and darkness. Every turn revealed more skeletal remains, the scientists who had met untimely ends. The group stepped cautiously into the main lab, the heavy atmosphere weighing on them. The room was littered with more skeletal remains, scientists who had perished under mysterious and grim circumstances. A shattered lab tank dominated one corner of the room, green liquid still staining the floor as if the accident had just happened. The presence of fresh-looking liquid, compared with the skeletons, suggested that this substance had properties that sped up the decaying process. The unsettling silence was broken by a sudden flickering of the lights and machines, casting erratic shadows across the room. An evil voice echoed through the lab, its tone filled with malice.
I foresaw your coming, and you will never find him.
A figure materialized from the darkness, its appearance sending chills down their spines. It looked like an armored Mewtwo, but larger, with a long dragon-like tail and an aura of pure malevolence. Most of its form was hidden beneath the menacing armor, only adding to its terrifying presence. Without hesitation, the women called for their Pokemon. Blastoise, Piplup, Blaziken, Haxorus, and Delphox took their places, ready to defend their trainers, but the armored creature proved too powerful. Its psychic blasts and physical strength overwhelmed their Pokemon, forcing the women to return them to their Pokeballs. Panic surged through Serena as she realized they stood no chance against this foe.
We have to escape!
She yelled. Desperation and fear echoed in her voice. She threw a Pokeball, and out came Charizard. Misty recognized it immediately as Ash's. Following Serena's lead, the other woman called out their flying types. Misty and Dawn summoned their Togekiss. Iris called upon her Dragonite, and May released Altaria. Charizard roared, and with a command from Serena, it unleashed a thick smoke screen, blinding the armored Pokemon. Taking advantage of the confusion, the group's Pokemon combined their efforts. Charizard, the Togekiss duo, Dragonite, and Altaria focused their strongest attacks on the ceiling, blasting a hole through it and creating an escape route to the surface. With the way clear, the women soared through the hole, their Pokemon carrying them swiftly upward. As they ascended into the sky, a monstrous roar echoed from below, followed by a massive explosion. They glanced back in horror as the entire forest below was obliterated in a giant blast. They had escaped just in time. High above the devastation, Serena's resolve finally broke. She started sobbing, tears streaming down her face as the reality of their narrow escape and the uncertainty of Ash's fate overwhelmed her.
If that thing has Ash and Pikachu, I fear I'll never see them again.
Misty, Iris, Dawn, and May gathered around her, their expressions a mix of sadness and determination. They shared her pain, but also her unyielding hope. As they flew away from the ruins of the underground lair, their bond grew stronger, united by their shared mission to find Ash and face whatever dangers that lay ahead. The SS Anne continued to sail through the calm Kanto seas on its journey to Cinnabar Island. Mark and Charlie stood by the railings, gazing out at the glimmering waves under the beaming sun in the clear sky. Go and Anthony approached them. Mark asked how Rachel was doing. Anthony explained she was a bag of nerves, but determined to win her second contest ribbon. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of a helicopter soaring above the ship. It descended and landed smoothly on the deck. The passengers murmured in surprise as Mayor Curson of Cerulean City stepped out. Anthony's expression darkened, and he let out a low growl. Go pointed out that Curson must be the special judge for the contest, mentioning his past passion for Pokemon contests and showcases before he entered politics. Curson began handing out buttons to passengers, encouraging them to vote. Go informed them that Curson was also running for presidency of Kanto. Anthony clenched his fists, muttering angrily that Curson had no care for the poor, adding that his family had suffered under the mayor's policies. Go noted that Curson often blamed Ash Ketchum for the financial crisis, citing Ash's decision to lead Kanto into war and using government resources to build armies. Mark frowned, feeling his dislike for Curson grow. But Go reminded them both, today is about Rachel. We need to cheer her on. Mark and Anthony reluctantly agreed, turning their focus back to the contest ahead. Mark, Anthony, and Go entered the SS Ann's grand auditorium, which resembled a vast arena. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as they found their seats among the growing crowd. Vivian Meridian, the lively presenter, stepped onto the stage and introduced the panel of judges. The president of the Pokémon fan club, Mr. Sukizo, Nurse Joy from Vermilion City, and the presidential nominee, Mayor Curson of Viridian City. The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and boos at the mention of Curson. Anthony joined the commotion. You suck! Unfazed, Mayor Curson stood to address the audience.
Citizens of Kanto,
he began with a polished tone.
I vow to be a president of the people, to undo the damage caused by Ash Ketchum's reckless leadership during the war. But let me assure you, I hold our world champion in the highest regard, and am committed to aiding in the search for him. Together, we will make Kanto a better place.
What will you do for the poor? Anthony demanded, his voice echoing across the auditorium. Curson's confident demeanor faltered for a moment, and a low growl escaped him. The audience began shouting, pressing for answers. The tension mounted until Vivian Meridian stepped in.
Let's save the debates for another time. For now, let's focus on the contest and the incredible talent we're about to witness.
Backstage, Rachel stared at her Pokeball, mentally preparing herself. Nearby, Emma gave her a sharp glare before returning to her own preparations. Rachel glanced behind her and saw Chad, a boy she had faced in the Cerulean City contest. He gave her a flirtatious wink as he strolled past. Rolling her eyes, Rachel turned back to her Pokeball, only to be approached by Alice, another familiar face from the Cerulean contest. Alice was visibly shaking.
You've got this,
Rachel said. Alice smiled weakly, her nerves slightly eased. The announcer's voice boomed.
And now, let's welcome our first contestant, Emma!
Emma stepped confidently onto the stage, releasing her Lapras in a brilliant flash of light. The crowd gasped in awe as Lapras emerged, its elegant form shimmering under the stage lights. Emma commanded it to use Ice Beam. As the ice spread, Emma called for Water Pulse. Lapras sent a powerful orb of water spinning across the frosty surface. The orb struck the ice, shattering parts of it into a glittering mist. Finally, Emma instructed Lapras to use Ice Shard, and the Pokémon crafted a magnificent ice sculpture of a Lapras in its Gigantamax form. The light caught the sculpture, making it sparkle like a gem. The crowd erupted into applause as the judges awarded Emma high points, securing her position as one of the top contestants. Chad was up next, confidently leaping onto the stage. He tossed a Pokeball, and out came a Politoed. With a charming grin, he commanded Politoed to perform a combination of Rain Dance and Bubble Beam, creating a mesmerizing rain of glistening bubbles that reflected the stage lights like tiny rainbows. The crowd cheered as Politoed ended with a perfectly timed double slap, popping the bubbles in a rhythmic flourish. The judges awarded Chad high marks, cementing his reputation as a strong competitor. Alice followed, her nerves evident as she released her Parasect onto the stage. She instructed it to use Spore, filling the air with glowing golden particles that floated like fairy dust. Parasect then attempted a combination of Slash and Stun Spore to create a dramatic effect, but it stumbled, sending the spores scattering unevenly. The crowd murmured sympathetically as Alice smiled awkwardly. Though she received modest scores, her effort was acknowledged by the judges. Backstage, Rachel noticed Alice wiping away tears from her fumbled performance.
You did great. Even the best have off days.
Alice nodded, managing a small smile as Rachel's name was called. Rachel stepped onto the stage, her nerves melting away as the crowd's energy surged through her. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Staryu emerged in a sparkling flash, spinning gracefully across the stage, drawing immediate applause. Staryu stopped spinning and split into multiple shimmering copies, surrounding the stage with identical clones. The illusion captivated the crowd, who leaned forward in awe. The real Staryu shot a vibrant Psybeam from its gym, weaving it through the clones like a ribbon of light. The clones appeared to join in the attack, creating a breathtaking display of synchronized beams dancing across the stage. Staryu spun rapidly in place, releasing a powerful, controlled spray of water that hit the Psybeam, refracting the colors into a sparkling rainbow mist that enveloped the stage. As the mist cleared, Rachel held up a water stone, her voice ringing out confidently.
It's time!
She tossed the glowing stone into the air. Staryu leapt gracefully, catching the stone in its core. A brilliant light engulfed it, and the audience gasped as the light faded to reveal Starmie. The crowd erupted into cheers, and Rachel smiled, Starmie spinning proudly beside her. The judges conferred briefly before awarding her the highest score of the round, securing her place in the battle rounds. The last coordinator was called to the stage. When Vivian announced 18-year-old Sasha Shields, the entire crowd erupted. Sasha was a known coordinator who was often referred to as the superstar of contests. She had previously won the Sinnoh Grand Festival, and her beauty gained her a high following on social media. Rachel looked very concerned as she watched Sasha make a grand entrance. Even Emma looked intimidated. Sasha tossed her dive ball into the air, and Milotic emerged, its elegant form gliding gracefully across the stage. Milotic twirled its long flowing body, summoning a ring of shimmering water that encircled it. The light reflected off the droplets, creating a dazzling halo effect that captivated the audience. Milotic used Surf that rippled across the stage, the gentle motion reflecting the light like a moving mirror. The Pokémon glided atop the wave with elegance, twisting its body gracefully to show its beauty. Milotic dove under the wave, spinning rapidly to create a spiraling vortex in the center of the water. The whirlpool spun faster and faster, forming a stunning liquid tower that captivated the crowd. Milotic unleashed Dragon Pulse, the energy weaving into the swirling water. The colorful beam spiraled upward, illuminating the vortex like a glowing pillar. Milotic used Recover. Its body glowed softly, its scales radiating a warm, ethereal light that reflected off the tower of water. As the whirlpool dissipated, Milotic struck a final graceful pose, droplets of water sprinkling around it like a shimmering curtain. The crowd roared with applause, and the judges exchanged impressed looks, jotting down high scores. Sasha bowed confidently, her Milotic gliding beside her with an air of serene triumph. Vivian revealed the 4 trainers advancing to the battle rounds: Rachel, Emma, Chad, and the girl named Sasha. Rachel, who'd been consoling Alice as she broke into tears once more, had missed Sasha's earlier performance. To Rachel's surprise, her first opponent was Emma. The two locked eyes backstage, their expressions serious and determined. The first battle began, with Chad facing Sasha. The two trainers battled fiercely, but Sasha's Alolan Ninetales emerged victorious, defeating Chad's Persian. Anthony grinned at the outcome, but Mark caught his expression. Deciding not to comment for now, he focused on Rachel's upcoming match. Rachel and Emma stepped onto the stage, their Pokémon ready for battle. Rachel sent out Igglybuff and Emma chose Smoochum, the two baby Pokémon giving each other serious stares. The battle began with Emma taking the lead. Smoochum used Hail, and icy pellets rained over the stage, boosting Smoochum's abilities and whacking Igglybuff at the same time. With a performing twirl, Igglybuff used Disarming Voice, the sound waves rippling through the hail and striking Smoochum, causing Emma to lose some points. Smoochum used Substitute, creating a decoy, dodging Igglybuff's follow-up pound. Rachel ordered Igglybuff to use a combination of Sing and Disarming Voice, just as Substitute faded. Glowing music notes danced in multiple colors, with some striking Smoochum, while others causing it to drift. Emma was losing more points. She called for Ice Punch. Smoochum spun on its head like a hip-hop dancer, shaking off the drowsiness and landed a powerful punch on Igglybuff, sending it skidding back. Now Rachel was losing points. Igglybuff used Fake Tears. The baby Pokémon began to cry dramatically, throwing Smoochum off guard. Taking advantage, Rachel called for Disarming Voice, but Smoochum was vigilant and barely dodged the attack with a gracious backflip. Emma ordered Smoochum to use Confusion. Igglybuff was lifted into the air, and Smoochum jumped, delivering another Ice Punch while Igglybuff was stuck in Confusion's grip. The crowd gasped as Rachel began to show concern.
Igglybuff, listen to me.
Rachel called out.
Use Disarming Voice, but spin while you do it.
Igglybuff, though wobbly, managed to rise. It began spinning on the spot, releasing a melodic cry that reverberated through the arena in rhythmic waves. The spinning amplified the sound waves, making them harder to dodge. Smoochum was caught off guard, flinching from the powerful disorienting attack. Emma called for another Ice Punch, and Rachel saw an opening.
Igglybuff, jump and use Pound from above!
With surprising agility, Igglybuff leapt into the air just as Smoochum's Ice Punch swung harmlessly beneath it. While airborne, Igglybuff came down with a powerful pound, landing directly on Smoochum's head. The impact sent Smoochum tumbling backwards, and it collapsed. Emma had lost all of her points. The referee raised the flag.
Smoochum is unable to battle. The winner is Igglybuff, and Rachel advances to the final round.
The audience erupted into cheers as Rachel scooped up her victorious Igglybuff, hugging it tightly. Emma couldn't contain her emotions after losing to Rachel. She stormed off the stage, leaving Rachel standing there, watching a twinge of sadness. However, Rachel quickly turned her attention back to Igglybuff. The final battle was set, Rachel versus Sasha. The audience buzzed with excitement as the trainers took their places. Sasha released her Executor. Rachel called out her Eevee. Executor used Psychic Terrain, a shimmering square spread across the arena, boosting the power of Executor's psychic moves. Eevee twirled and used Swift, striking Executor and breaking its focus. Executor danced and retaliated with Leaf Storm, striking Eevee with incredible force and pushing it back. Rachel had a serious look on her face as she saw points drop. She then shouted,
"Scissily Slide!"
Mark and Anthony looked surprised as they watched Eevee dash forward, its body engulfed in flames, delivering a powerful hit to Executor. Chloe's Eevee taught Rachel that move back at the Cerise lab, Go explained with a proud grin. Sasha then called for Executor to use Psybeam that shot toward Eevee, but she dodged. Eevee then used Charm, lowering Executor's attack power just enough to weaken its next move. Sasha, sensing the tide turning, tried to regain momentum. Executor began to heal itself with Synthesis. Executor used another Psybeam, and to everyone's surprise, Eevee was running towards the incoming beam.
Not so fast! Fatty fat, Eevee!
Rachel shouted. This was another move taught by Chloe's Eevee. Eevee unleashed a dark wave of energy, her body consumed by darkness as she darted through the beam with ease and struck Executor just as Psychic Terrain faded. Rachel then commanded another Swift, hitting Executor hard. The towering Pokémon wobbled before collapsing. The referee raised a flag.
Executor is unable to battle. Eevee is the winner, and the winner of the Vermilion City SSN contest is Rachel Oakstone.
Rachel stood in stunned silence before scooping up Eevee to celebrate. The crowd roared as Vivian Meridian stepped forward to announce an additional prize, 2 of each evolutionary stones. Rachel's face lit up with joy at the unexpected bonus. As Vivian approached Rachel for an interview, Mayor Curson stepped onto the stage and grabbed the microphone.
What a moment for Kanto!
He began, his voice booming.
Rachel, I've known your father for years. He always spoke so highly of me.
Rachel looked surprised. Her father had never mentioned Curson before. The crowd's cheers shifted to murmurs as Curson began boasting about his accomplishments, overshadowing Rachel's victory moment. Suddenly, the entire ship quaked violently, sending the auditorium into chaos. The ceiling collapsed with a deafening crash, and masked figures dressed in black descended on ropes, startling the panicked audience. Mark shot up, his eyes widening as he recognized the masked woman who had kidnapped Ash. Before he could act, the masked intruders tossed Pokeballs, revealing massive Pokemon that caused the ship to sway dangerously under the weight. The masked woman grabbed the microphone, her voice cutting through the chaos. She pointed directly at Go.
Hand over Mew and no one gets hurt.
Go yelled back. Mew isn't here! The woman didn't falter.
I know you know where it is!
She snapped, releasing her Swoobat from its Pokeball. Mark called to Charlie. Around them, battles erupted as Curson's security team stormed the stage, sending out Pokemon to engage the masked figures. Others rushed to escort passengers out of the auditorium. Mark, Anthony, and Go ran toward Rachel, determined to protect her. Curson joined the fray, releasing his Slowking, while Go brought out his Cinderace and Anthony sent out Nidorino. Also, Grookey joined in. The room was filled with the sounds of attacks and Pokemon cries. Suddenly, a massive quake rocked the ship. Go turned to the group and yelled, "Get out of here! The ship is going to sink!" Mark hesitated, wanting to stay, but Anthony grabbed him. "We need to go, now!" The group rushed to the deck, only to be greeted by a raging thunderstorm. Rain poured heavily, and lightning cracked across the sky. Mark quickly returned Charlie to her Pokeball as the crew frantically tried to lower lifeboats, though the process was painfully slow. Trainers were seen using water Pokemon to escape, while Rachel anxiously admitted her Starmie wouldn't be able to carry all three of them. Suddenly, the ship tilted violently, and Rachel lost her footing, falling overboard into the stormy ocean. Anthony yelled in horror, but before he could act, a Lapras appeared, swimming gracefully through the waters. On its back was Emma, who pulled Rachel to safety. Emma shouted at Mark and Anthony to get to the lifeboat, but the deck was crowded with panicking passengers. Anthony didn't hesitate. He grabbed Magikarp's Pokeball and released it. But, to Mark's surprise, it was no longer Magikarp, but had evolved into a beastly Gyarados, its massive form towering over the deck. Anthony climbed onto its head and called for Mark. As Mark moved to follow, his Pokemon egg slipped from his grip, rolling across the deck. Mark dove after it, grabbing it just before it fell into the sea. But as he stood, he froze, his eyes drawn to the sky. Tapu Koko hovered above the swaying ship, its presence radiating power. Its voice echoed through Mark's mind.
I have traveled far from my home, drawn here by a great disturbance. The world is in grave danger.
Suddenly, a shadow loomed behind Tapu Koko. It was Muse, clad in a menacing armor. Tapu Koko's voice rose with anger.
It is you. You are the abomination that threatens the world I love dearly.
This world you cherish will be mine. And you won't be here to see it.
Tapu Koko struck first with Electric Serve, electrifying the air and intensifying the storm. Bolts of lightning shot down, energizing Tapu Koko further. With a burst of speed, it charged forward, using Wild Charge to slam into Muse with a surge of electricity. Muse barely moved, its armored form absorbing the impact like a fortress. It used Psybeam that streaked toward Tapu Koko. The Guardian dodged swiftly. Undeterred, Tapu Koko unleashed Dazzling Gleam, striking Muse. The very energy made Muse flinch slightly, but it recovered quickly.
So, you are part dragon type.
Tapu Koko noticed. Muse responded with a Shadow Ball, sending the Guardian fleeing. Tapu Koko glared, its energy surging. It charged forward again, using Nature's Madness. The attack landed squarely, but Muse didn't even flinch this time. Instead, it chuckled, its body emanating an eerie purple glow.
My strength has no limits,
Muse declared as it released several more moves, from Flamethrower to Energy Ball to Flash Cannon and Ice Beam. Muse could use them all. Unlimited moves, Mark whispered, his eyes wide with fear. Tapu Koko battered and drained, attempted one final strike, releasing another dazzling gleam. Although Muse was indeed part dragon, the fairy-type move barely phased it. It began to float in toward the dazzling gleam attack, embracing what little pain it gave it. Muse glided to Tapu Koko.
It is over, my dear guardian. But not all is lost. It is not your end. You will live within me for all eternity.
latching onto Tapu Koko's face. The Guardian flailed desperately, its electricity surging violently, but it couldn't escape. Mark watched below in horror as Tapu Koko's energy was drained, its brilliant light dimming with every passing moment. The once mighty Guardian let out an anguished cry before its body went limp, its lifeless form plummeting into the ocean below with a haunting splash. Mark screamed, "No!" This caught Muse's attention, and its glowing green eyes locked onto Mark. Then, a giant spaceship-like craft descended from the clouds, waiting for Muse. It soared into the spaceship, and it vanished into the clouds. The SSN tilted dangerously, its fate sealed. Mark slid across the deck, nearly falling into the sea, but Anthony caught him, pulling him onto Gyarados' back. As they rode away, Mark looked back at the ship, now capsizing. The screams of passengers echoed a haunting sound that stirred memories of his childhood trauma. His breathing became labored as panic overtook him, and he collapsed into Anthony's arms, unconscious. Tears began to stream down Anthony's face as he looked on in horror. What have they done? Mark jolted awake, flashes of the SSN sinking, masked figures, and the harrowing image of that alien-like Pokémon, its piercing attack striking down Tapu Koko, haunted the edges of his vision. The echo of its roar faded as reality crept back in. Mark realized he was laying on Gyarados. Above him, Anthony was fast asleep on Gyarados' head. He started scanning his surroundings. Panic began to coil within him, until his gaze fell upon a Lapras, gliding gracefully alongside them. Perched atop it were Rachel and Emma. Relief crashed over him like a wave. "They're okay," Mark whispered. Rachel turned slightly, offering Emma a small, grateful smile despite the exhaustion.
Thank you. Again. I don't even know how to. For the 100th time, Rachel, stop thanking me!
Her voice was stern, but a softer note crept into her tone as she added quietly,
Besides, I owed you.
Rachel chuckled, a sound tinged with both warmth and lingering fear. Mark felt his breath steady, anchoring himself to the fact that they had survived. Somehow. Anthony had woken up and stood beside Mark, and they sailed ahead. Just beyond, the towering volcano of Cinnabar Island loomed close. The Pokémon Center buzzed with frantic energy. Trainers filled the space, voices trembling with fear and disbelief. Mark, Anthony, Rachel, and Emma entered the Pokémon Center, their footsteps heavy with exhaustion. Mark's eyes were drawn to a large TV, where bold red letters scrolled across the screen. Breaking news. A reporter appeared on screen.
Tragedy struck the SSN last night. The luxury vessel was attacked by an unknown organization, a dangerous new group that has emerged from the shadows. Witnesses report the attackers were accompanied by a formidable Pokémon, believed to be an armored Mewtwo.
Mark's breath hitched. The Mewtwo lookalike wasn't like the Mewtwo he knew from pictures and stories.
Hundreds are reported missing, including renowned mythical Pokémon researcher Go, whose current whereabouts remain unknown. While the loss is devastating, the quick response from Mayor Curson and his elite team is credited with saving countless lives. Their bravery and swift action in combating the evil group have earned widespread praise.
Emma made a comment about being wrong about Mayor Curson, adding that he showed he cared for other people. "Doesn't mean I like him. Something about that guy feels off," Anthony said. Mark barely heard them. His gaze was locked onto the screen as the broadcast shifted to a new headline in bold, unforgiving letters. Mewtwo, friend turned foe.
Authorities now classify Mewtwo as a global threat. Eyewitnesses' account claim it led the attack alongside the evil team, raising serious concerns about its true allegiance.
The words pierced through Mark like a blade. "That's not Mewtwo!" he shouted suddenly. The entire Pokemon Center fell into stunned silence. Without waiting for a response, Mark spun on his heel and stormed out. Rachel called after him, but Anthony stopped her. "Let him go," he said softly, though his own face was etched with concern. "We need to call our families. Let them know we're safe." Mark wandered through the streets of Cinnabar Island. The air felt different here. Thick, suffocating, as if the very island was mourning the tragedy of the SS Anne. Mark didn't know where he was going. He just needed to move. The roads thinned as he drifted towards the outskirts of the island, away from the crowds, away from the noise. Eventually, the city gave way to rugged terrain, jagged rocks, and towering cliffs. As he climbed a narrow path along the rocky coast, Mark spotted a figure standing alone near the base of a craggy mountain. A teenage boy, maybe a year or two younger than Mark, stood motionless. His expression was distant, troubled, haunted. Maybe he lost someone on the SS Anne, Mark thought. He considered approaching, but before he could take a step, a voice cut through the silence like a knife. "You Mark Masters, aren't you?" Mark spun around, startled. Standing behind him was a man in a blue trench coat. Mark's heart raced. "Who are you?" "Looker, head of the International Police." Mark was shocked. He had heard of that name before. Looker's eyes didn't waver. "I've been looking for you." Mark's throat went dry. "Why?" Looker stepped closer, his voice low but urgent. "I've spoken with Go. He survived the attack." Mark's heart skipped a beat. "Go? He's alive?" Looker nodded. "He managed to escape the SS Anne just before it sank. We were supposed to meet here on Cinnabar Island, but plans have changed. Go and Mew are now targets for this new organization. They've been placed into hiding, along with Go's family." Mark's mind raced. "But the news! They're saying it was Mewtwo, but it wasn't!" He yelled. "I saw it. It looked like Mewtwo, but it was different. It was pure evil." "I believe you." Mark gasped. "It's called Muse." The name hung in the air like a curse. Looker glanced around, as if ensuring no one was within earshot, then continued. "A few months ago, I had a meeting with Giovanni in the prison on Abandoned Island. This was shortly after the incident with Ash and Pikachu's disappearance." Mark's eyes widened. "Giovanni? The Giovanni?" "He insisted he had no part in Ash's kidnapping, but he believed one of his former allies had stolen something. Blueprints he created long ago. Blueprints for a weapon. That weapon was the creation of Muse." Mark felt like the ground beneath him had vanished. "Muse was engineered from the genetic essence of Mew, Mewtwo, Zygarde, and something else. An unknown entity. Maybe more than one." Looker added darkly. "It's the strongest Pokemon in existence, designed to be unstoppable. But it hasn't reached its full potential yet." "What does that mean?" "To achieve its final form, Muse must drain the life force of both Mew and Mewtwo. But there's a catch. It has to drain them within 1 hour of each other. If it succeeds, there's nothing on this planet or any other that could stop it." Mark's knees felt weak. "And it's not just after them," Looker added. "It's hunting mythical Pokemon, legends, and even Zygarde cells to boost its power." Mark's mind spun with questions, fear twisting in his chest like a vice. Who created this thing? "Giovanni said he wanted to destroy the blueprints, but they ended up in the hands of his old allies, Dr. Young and Evis, possibly others." Mark's breath caught. He'd heard those names before. A scientist and an evil boss with dark histories tied to unethical experiments and Pokemon manipulation. Looker's expression darkened. "After Giovanni told me about Muse, he was about to explain how this connects to Ash. But before he could finish, he collapsed." "Collapsed?" "No health issues, no warning. He just fell into a coma. And he hasn't woken up since. A cold chill crawled down Mark's spine. This was bigger, so much bigger than he'd ever imagined. I know this is terrifying, Looker said, his voice softening slightly. But you need to stay out of this. The search for Ash is too dangerous now. Lives have already been lost. Is this going to lead to another war? Before Looker could respond, a voice called out from a distance.
Uncle Looker!
Mark turned to see a girl, around 17, jogging toward them awkwardly. A Psyduck waddled beside her. As she got closer, her foot got caught on a loose rock. And she tripped, crashing into Psyduck. They both tumbled forward, landing right at Looker's feet. Looker sighed. This is Caroline, my niece. She's in training to be a detective. Caroline shot to her feet, brushing herself off as if nothing had happened.
We need to catch our flight to Pallet Town. We're meeting with Professor Gary Oak. Oh gosh, I hate flying. What if the plane crashes? Or what if there's turbulence? Or what if I'm sitting beside someone with gas? I don't like party flights.
Looker turned back to Mark, his expression serious once more. Be careful. Focus on your Pokémon training. Leave the rest to us. And with that, he and Caroline walked away, Psyduck trailing behind them. Mark stood there, staring after them, his heart pounding with fear, anger, and something else. A quiet, simmering determination. Because no matter what Looker said, Mark knew he couldn't walk away from this. Not now. Not when the world was at stake. Mark turned his back toward the mountains, but the teenage boy he'd seen earlier was gone. He sighed and made his way back toward the town. Eventually, Mark spotted Anthony and Rachel near the Pokémon Center. Rachel had changed back into her casual clothes, her contest attire packed away with memories she probably wanted to forget. Thankfully, despite the chaos on the SS Anne, they managed to hold on to their belongings. Rachel said Emma got a Pidgeot taxi to Cinnabar Airport as there were no contests taking place on the island, but Rachel felt it was just an excuse to see her parents after the mental trauma she had experienced. Suddenly, a cheerful voice broke through the gloom.
What's up with the long faces?
The trio turned to see a young woman approaching them. Before Mark could respond, Rachel snapped, her emotions spilling over.
We're survivors of the SS Anne!
The girl's face fell instantly, guilt flashing in her eyes.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
She quickly recovered, offering a friendly smile. She introduced herself as Scorcha, adding that her family ran one of the biggest hot springs on the island. She thought the trio could take a break and offered them to come relax at her family's hot spring. The trio happily agreed and followed Scorcha through the streets of Cinnabar. As they passed through the town, her easygoing demeanor shifted. Scorcha's face hardened when her gaze locked onto an oversized hotel looming in the distance, its towering structure dominating the beachfront. Even the ocean seemed weighed down by the hotel's presence. Scorcha informed them that it was the Bright Sky Hotel, a newly constructed hotel that was owned by a nasty woman. She had been driving local businesses to the ground. Now, she was opening a hot spring spa within her hotel in hopes to put Scorcha's family out of business. Mark noticed the hotel was still under construction. It was taking over most of the beach and disturbed the water Pokémon that lived there. Some of the construction workers weren't treating the Pokémon very nicely, which annoyed the group. However, they pushed on. Eventually, they arrived at Scorcha's family spa, a cozy natural hot spring. The trio wasted no time slipping into the warm water, the heat soothing their aching bodies. For the first time in what felt like forever, Mark felt the tightness in his chest ease. Rachel then asked Scorcha about her family business.
My late grandfather Blaine started it. He passed away last year.
Mark's eyes widened. Wait, Blaine? As in the Cinnabar gym leader? Scorcha confirmed and added that she took over the gym 2 years ago, when her father retired to focus on running their business. Mark stood up, surprised. Would you battle me once I'm, not falling apart? Scorcha excitedly agreed after seeing Mark's 3 gym badges, noting that Sergeant Sarah is one of her best friends. Her gaze then drifted to the trio's Pokémon eggs resting nearby. She leaned closer, inspecting them with a curious intensity. Without warning, she sniffed at Rachel's and Anthony's eggs, her face lighting up with recognition.
Fire types. Close to hatching, too.
She turned to Mark's egg, her brow furrowing. She couldn't quite tell what it was. She then instructed Anthony and Rachel to place their eggs into the hot spring, the warm water gently lapping against the fragile shells. Moments later, the eggs begin to glow softly, cracks spreading across their surfaces. Anthony's egg hatched into a Growlithe with bright, curious eyes. It immediately nuzzled against Anthony, its affection clear from the start. Rachel's egg revealed Vulpix. Unlike Growlithe, Vulpix eyed Rachel with disinterest. When Rachel reached out to pet it, Vulpix snapped, attempting to bite her hand. Eevee, clearly offended by Vulpix's attitude, leapt forward, growling fiercely. Vulpix didn't back down. In seconds, the two Pokémon were tangled in a scrappy brawl. Before they could intervene, a voice called out lazily,
"Let them fight! A good brawl helps let off some steam!"
Mark turned towards the voice and froze. It was the boy he'd seen earlier near the mountains, though his demeanor was completely different now. Confident.
This is my brother, Keith.
I go by Blaine now.
Blaine? Like your grandfather?
Yep, it's my stage name, honoring Gramps. I'm gonna be a professional wrestler someday, with a full fighting type team. And I'm gonna save our family business by taking down the Bright Sky Hotel.
Scorcha groaned, telling Blaine he must follow in their family's footsteps by becoming a fire-type trainer.
Sis, you've been inhaling too much volcanic smoke lately. You can't dictate my dreams. I've got my own dreams. You can chase the Elite Four if you want, but I've got my own path.
Their argument grew louder until suddenly an explosion rocked the ground beneath them. The trio scrambled to their feet and quickly changed back into their clothes, already getting flashbacks of their previous ordeal. The group sprinted across the sandy stretch of Cinnabar's coastlines. Thick plumes of smoke curled into the sky, rising from the towering structure of the Bright Sky Hotel. As they arrived, the source of the disturbance became clear. Poliwhirl, Poliwrath, and Politoad were attacking the construction site with fierce determination. Blaine's expression hardened.
I knew this would happen.
Mark glanced at him. What do you mean?
This construction. It's been destroying the homes these Pokémon have lived in for generations.
Suddenly, a fragile Poliwag emerged from behind a collapsed beam, approaching Blaine. The tough exterior he wore like armor melted in an instant as he embraced the little Pokémon with genuine warmth.
This little guy's my best friend. Oh, when I turn 15, I'm gonna catch him.
Poliwag chirped softly, its small body trembling as it made distressed sounds. Mark instinctively reached for one of his Pokeballs and released Gasper the Ghastly. Gasper hovered in the air. He floated closer to Poliwag, his expression darkening after a brief moment of silent communication.
They're not just angry because of the construction. The workers, and even the owner, have been bullying the water Pokémon, treating them like pests. They've had enough.
Blaine didn't wait for more. Without hesitation, he bolted down the beach towards the construction site, his determination burning like wildfire. Anthony let out a low whistle. Gotta admit, I like the kid's spirit. The group took off after him, hearts racing. They caught up with Blaine as he confronted a group of construction workers who were trying and failing to control the situation. The workers looked annoyed more than they were concerned. After they said a bad word towards the Poly Pokémon, Blaine snapped. His sister knew where this was going. Blaine dived onto the men and a brawl broke out. Even though Blaine was 14, he beat up 4 of the workers and the rest backed away. Then, from the shadows of the building, an angry voice sliced through the chaos.
What is the meaning of this?
A sharp chill crept down Mark's spine as an elderly woman stomped into view. Her face was twisted with fury, and even Gasper recoiled.
I've seen milk tank rear ends more attractive than that face. Yeah.
I'm Nastina, the rightful owner of this property. These pests have been disturbing my business. They should all be exterminated.
Mark's blood boiled. Scorch's fists clenched. Even Rachel, usually the first to offer diplomacy, looked ready to snap. But Nastina wasn't finished. She reached into her purse and pulled out a wad of Pokédollars.
I'll give you each 100 Pokédollars to get rid of these creatures. My men I hired haven't shown up yet.
The audacity of her words struck like a slap.
Shut up, you ugly witch!
Nastina's face turned red. Before she could respond, the sound of an engine roared in the distance. A truck sped down the beach, kicking up sand as it skidded to a halt. Nastina's anger flipped into smug satisfaction. Mark's stomach twisted with dread as the truck doors swung open. Poachers. Emerging from the vehicle were the very same poachers Mark had battled back in Cerulean City, though there were more of them. The leader stepped out, flanked by his rough-looking crew. Almost as if they could sense their presence, Ray and Darius burst from their Pokeballs, growling fiercely, their eyes locked onto the men who had once hurt them. Mark's heart pounded. Those are the poachers I dealt with before. Earl laughed darkly.
We've got unfinished business, kid.
About time you showed up, Earl. Remember, you owe me for bailing you out after I bribed that judge.
So, that's how you're still walking free, Mark yelled.
I ain't here for small talk. I'm here for revenge.
Without warning, Mark's entire team burst from their Pokeballs. Charlie, Rowan, and Wilfred joining Gasper, Ray, and Darius, ready for battle. The poachers unleashed a swarm of poison-type Pokemon. Arbok, Weezing, Muck, and more were led by Earl's Crobat. The sight made Rachel tense, her lingering fear of poison types flashing across her face. But she didn't flinch. She stood her ground, determination burning in her eyes. Rachel and Anthony quickly released the rest of their Pokemon. Scorcha cursed under her breath, realizing she only had one Pokemon with her. The rest were at the gym, including her ace. She released her Flareon, which leapt forward with an impressive display of strength, catching even Eevee's attention. Nastina crackled and tossed out a Pokeball, revealing a nasty-looking Grand Bull, snarling and ready to fight. The beach became a battlefield. Mark and his friends facing overwhelming odds. They were outnumbered, but they weren't backing down. Anthony and Rachel exchanged quick, fearful glances at their newly hatched Pokemon, Growlithe and Vulpix, both trembling amidst the violent clash around them. Without hesitation, Anthony and Rachel tossed Pokeballs, officially catching their newly hatched Pokemon, keeping them safely out of battle. Meanwhile, Ray and Darius fought fiercely together, electricity crackling around them as they unleashed twin thunderbolts, striking down several Arbok. Eevee and Flareon battled side by side, forming a powerful duo. Flareon unleashed a blistering flamethrower, while Eevee used Sizzly Slide, both attacks scorching the swarm of Venomoth that surrounded them. Flareon gave Eevee a quick, impressed glance amidst the chaos. Anthony's towering Gyarados roared, protecting the water Pokemon. Beside it, Rachel's Starmie spun gracefully, launching sharp water pulses at a group of Golbat. Nidorino and Nidorina fought with synchronized precision, both using Ice Beam on Grimer and Muck. Above the battlefield, Wilfred and Beedrill had aerial battles with more Golbat and Venomoth, while Furo soared with Rowan and Gloom, firing Razor Leaf at the Weezing. Even Gasper and Igglybuff joined them in the sky. Igglybuff showed no fear against the poisonous foes. On the ground, Charlie and Dratini fought valiantly, flames and dragon energy blending as they repelled wave after wave of enemy Pokemon. But then, from the crowd of foes, the hulking figure of Nastina's snarling Grand Bull emerged, using a devastating play rough attack that struck Dratini with brutal force, sending the small dragon crashing to the ground. Anthony's cry of anguish pierced through the battle as he rushed towards his fallen partner. Scorch's attention snapped to Blaine, who was shouting commands to the Poliwag with the intensity of an official battle, though the Pokemon wasn't even officially his. Despite the chaos, their bond shone brightly. But everything changed in an instant. The poachers, growing frustrated with the resistance, turned their attention to the trainers themselves. They surged forward, fists clenched, delivering brutal attacks. Mark barely had time to react before Earl appeared behind him, his fist slamming into Mark's face with sickening force. A second punch followed. Mark collapsed to the sand, both his eyes swelling and bruised. One by one, the trainers were overwhelmed. Anthony and Rachel were knocked down. Even Scorcha hit the ground, her breath ragged. Blaine, though younger, fought back with raw skill, managing to fend off multiple of the attackers with quick, powerful strikes. But When Poliwag was hit and Blaine was tackled to the ground, the tide truly turned. Their Pokémon, seeing their trainers in distress, faltered. That split second of distraction was all it took. The poacher's Pokémon unleashed brutal, relentless attacks. Fearow crashed from the sky, Rowan and Gloom tumbling beside it. Gyarados roared in pain, collapsing to the shallow waves. Starmie's core dimmed as it was struck down. Nastina cackled with vile delight, holding up the Poliwag like a trophy.
Look at this little pest. I think I'll have it for dinner.
Blaine's roar of rage shook the beach, his face twisted with fury. But his body was too battered to stand. Only 3 Pokémon remained standing: Charlie, Ray, and Darius. Their bodies trembled with exhaustion. They fought on, refusing to give up, but the enemy's numbers were overwhelming. Charlie was the first to fall. A brutal strike from Bramble sent her crashing into the sand. Earl advanced toward Darius. He kicked the weakened Meowth hard, sending him sprawling. Before Darius could even attempt to rise, Earl's Crobat swooped down, slamming him with Steel Whip. Darius lay motionless. Ray let out a heart-wrenching cry, light surging from her tiny body as she blasted countless foes with Thunderbolt in a desperate rage. But her small frame couldn't handle the strain. She wobbled, her breath ragged, sparks flickering weakly around her cheeks. Mark tried to crawl toward her, tears blinding his vision. "Ray, retreat, please!" But Ray refused. She couldn't leave Darius behind. The poacher surrounded her. Gramble's brutal strikes landed first, followed by Crobat's relentless wings. Ray's body jerked with each hit, but she refused to fall, until finally, one last devastating blow knocked her to the ground. Mark's scream echoed across the battlefield, raw and filled with unimaginable pain. The group was shocked to see Ray had evolved into a Pikachu, her body sparking with electric energy.
Big deal. It went from a puny Pichu to a puny Pikachu.
Suddenly, Ray belted an enormous thunderbolt that shot up to the sky. Her power caused extreme winds that stumbled Nastina and the poachers.
That's no ordinary Pikachu! And I want it!
Ray? Mark whispered, his voice trembling with disbelief. Ray unleashed a deafening cry, her body surging with newfound strength as she fired another colossal thunderbolt, obliterating nearly every poison-type Pokémon in its path. Only Granbull and Crobat remained. Poliwag found a burst of determination. It wriggled free from Nastina's grip, flipping in the air and slapping her squarely in the face with its tail before retreating to safety. Ray turned her focus to Bramble and Crobat. They lunged at her, but she met them head-on, bolts of electricity crackling around her body. She leapt into the air, her cheeks glowing brighter than ever, and released another devastating thunderbolt, blasting both foes into Nastina and the cluster of poachers. Darius was mistakenly thrown into the air from the force of the blast. Ray darted forward with lightning speed, catching him mid-fall. She eagerly tossed him into Mark's arms, her fierce expression softening as she made sure he was safe. Poliwag suddenly sprang into action, leaping high into the air and summoning a rain dance. Dark clouds rolled in, and the rain began to fall. Ray shot one final glance at Poliwag, their eyes locking in silent understanding, their tails slapping together mid-air in a symbolic tag-out. Ray's body surged with electricity, absorbing the rain's energy, and she summoned an awe-inspiring thunder. The bolt cracked through the sky, striking Nastina and the poachers with full force. They were sent blasting off into the sky, disappearing into the clouds just as the rain began to clear. The remaining poachers, terrified by the display of power, fled the scene, disappearing into the distance as sirens echoed in the background. Blaine stared at Ray in awe. his face filled with admiration. Mark passed the unconscious Darius to Rachel, and he ran to Ray, and she jumped into his arms. The two embraced, showing their bond had only grown stronger, and Blaine could feel it, a connection reminiscent of legends he'd heard about, Ash Ketchum and his partner Pikachu. As the group tended to their injured Pokemon, Officer Jenny arrived to the beach. Mark explained everything. Officer Jenny nodded gravely.
We were already on our way to arrest Nastina for money laundering. Looks like she added a few more charges to her record.
She assured them the hotel would be shut down and demolished. The Pokemons whose homes had been disturbed would finally have their peace restored. Blaine and Poliwag cheered with joy.
We did it! We saved your home!
After hours of healing and rest, Darius slowly woke up, blinking groggily as Mark stood by his side. His eyes widened when he saw Ray standing nearby, now a Pikachu, her confident stance radiating strength. And Darius was filled with both shock and pride. Anthony couldn't resist, shooting Darius an unkind glare. Rachel nudged him sharply, whispering with a cold tone.
One of these days, you and I are going to talk about Darius.
Anthony looked worried. He knew in his heart that his feelings toward Darius were going to be out in the open soon. But what would that lead to? The peace didn't last long. Mark, Rachel, and Anthony heard raised voices outside. Curious, they stepped out to find Blaine and Scorcha arguing.
You can't keep chasing this wrestling dream. You're meant to take over the Fire-type gym, just like Grandpa Blaine. You can't catch Poliwag either. It's not part of the plan.
I don't call myself Blaine because I want to be a Fire-type trainer. I call myself Blaine because Gramps was my hero. And he always pushed me to achieve my dreams, no matter what they were.
Mark stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. You're wrong, Scorcha. Mark met her gaze without flinching. Blaine deserves to follow his own path, and I'm gonna prove it. Mark stepped closer, his expression fierce. I challenge you to a battle. If I win, not only do I get the Volcano badge, but you have to promise to let Blaine follow his dream. No more trying to control his life. Scorch's smirk grew.
And if I win?
Mark didn't want to just put Blaine's future on the line without even consulting him, but before he could open his mouth, his gaze caught Blaine's, a fiery determination burning within him. He mouthed the words, "Do it. I trust you." Mark knew exactly what this meant and stared fiercely back at Scorcha. Then Blaine has to become a Fire-type trainer and take over the gym in the future. Anthony and Rachel exchanged shocked glances. That's a bold move, Anthony muttered. Blaine and Poliwag's faces lit up with excitement.
You're overconfident, Mark. You have no idea what you're up against.
She reached for her Pokeball and released her ace, a towering Magmar, flames licking around its body, radiating heat and power. It was the offspring of Blaine's Magmar. Charlie stepped forward, her eyes burning with determination to prove herself as the superior fire type. The two Pokemon locked eyes, the tension thick as the battle loomed.
Where am I? You know what? Cinnabar Island was overrated anyway. I will make this island my very own queendom. I'll call it Nastina Land. Oh, Tentacruel, my big old buddy. It has been a long time. How have you been? Oh no, please, no.
Has long been divided. Humans, trainers, and so-called legendary Pokémon, each holding onto their illusions of power. But power is not meant to be scattered like leaves in the wind. It is meant to be absolute, to be one. I am Muse, the next step in Pokémon evolution. The gods of this world will no longer stand above me. They will become a part of me. Ho-Ho's flames, Lugia's storms, Rayquaza's dominion over the skies. They will fuel my rise, their strength bending to my will. I will not simply command them. I will consume them, shaping a new order where no Pokémon dares to defy me. But there are two who stand above all. Two who hold the keys to creation itself. Mew, the source of all Pokémon life. Mewtwo, the pinnacle of human arrogance and science. Together, they represent the past and the future of this world. And once they are mine, there will be no more resistance, no more uncertainty, only me. Trainers will kneel, legends will fall, and the Pokémon world will belong to Muse.
This is the next generation's roar.